Hello, hello. Amana here with the Heart of the Soul. Today is November 11th, 2021, and I'm here with my dear friend Rickanna.
Hello.
And baby Russ. Yes. And Rickanna arrived to my home at 11:11 a.m., which is feeling really beautiful and synchronistic. Rickanna, I have known for about 7 years. I met her at the same festival that I met my husband.
So cool.
And our friendship has grown over the years, which has been really beautiful.
Yes.
And we have a shared passion for birth and mothering and supporting each other and creating community. And Rickanna's an amazing artist and a mama, and she was at Bloom's birth, baby Charlot's birth.
So
she
magical.
Yes, was present and photographed, and I'm just so grateful for her.
I'm so grateful.
Super excited to have her here today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful.
I would love if you could start by kind of sharing a little bit about you, maybe where you were born, where you're from. You know,
just dive right in.
Whatever feels good to introduce yourself. Yeah.
Well, Rickcanna, that's a weird thing, right? It's a weird name.
Yes. Do you want to start with the name?
Yeah, totally
tell us the story.
My whole birth actually is really weird. My mother popped her water with a pen when she went into labor with me. Yes, because
like she popped her own water.
She went to the hospital multiple times saying that she felt something was not right.
Okay.
And they did not listen. And so I sent my mother back home. My mother was like, screw this.
Yes.
Something is wrong. And popped her own bulge of waters with her pen and went back into the hospital. And they were like, oh, you're in labor. So they took her. But upon literally birthing, my umbilical cord severed.
As you came, as you birthed, the cord was
severed.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
I've seen that once before. Yeah.
So that was my entryway by my mother forcefully getting me here. She's so awesome. But she said that she was really out of it when they asked for the baby's name. And it wasn't supposed to be Rickcanna with a C in the middle. It's like spelled with Rick and Anna. I'm named after my godparents, Rick and Anna, who I've never met as an adult. I don't even know who these people are, which is interesting. But yeah, she said she was a little messed up and put an extra C in there. So I go by Canna for short.
I love.
Yes, yeah, go by Canna. But yeah, weird name, weird story.
What's your middle name?
Anne. Rickcanna Anne. So I always got like growing up the Rickcanna Anna Rosanna. She would do the Rosanna Jana song. Yeah, so funny. It's been interesting growing up with a name that no one else has. I can't find it at the gas station on a magnet.
Right.
There's nothing that I can find that has
on a mug.
Nope. Yeah. So a lot of friends get stuff that says Rick on it for me. That's like my standing nickname.
Yes.
With all my friends who don't have kids and they're like, they don't think that they will have children themselves. Those people usually are the people that call me Rick. It's really funny. It's like the non-mothering version of me that they hold on to. Yes. They're like, hey, Rick. Super funny. But okay, I was born in Spokane Valley. I've been in Spokane my whole life. I became interested in these things when I met Shanoa, who you also know. Shanoa has held space for you many a times.
Yes.
I met Shanoa, I think, just prior to that festival that I met you at, or actually at that festival, Conscious Culture Festival in 2014.
Yeah.
And she introduced me to her goddess circles.
Yes.
And her women's groups that she would hold. And I was super interested in that. So I connected with Shanoa. I learned about natural fertility charting. I learned about my body.
Yes, it's amazing these things that we like don't learn about in school or regular life. Our mothers, like my mother doesn't know anything about her cycle.
My mother still doesn't know anything about her cycle, and nor is she interested though.
Yeah.
Which is another whole like plane of existence for prior generations. It's just having no interest in that.
Yes. And yet like if we go back further and further, women like really knew their cycle and natural ways of like fertility and knowing when they were fertile and being able to choose when to conceive and when to not conceive. And yeah.
Gosh, yeah. I just recently talked about how we've like kind of taken steps back in the modernization of birth. You know,
Yes.
we've taken huge steps backwards.
Yes.
As much as we have taken leaps and bounds forward. So
yes.
that is such a big conversation we can get.
Did you always know you wanted to be a mom? Like, or was it, what age did you start thinking about motherhood? Like,
honestly, it wasn't something that I super thought about until I met the father of my first son. He had 2 children already. Mm-hmm. Actually, when I met him, he had 1 child and then another child in the womb still, mm-hmm. which was quite the dynamic.
Yes.
Yes, it was quite the dynamic, but yes. And so he had his second baby and I was a stepmama, and I got to bottle feed that baby and co-sleep with that baby and bond with him, and raising the 2 others definitely made me want a baby of my own. So I ended up having River, but even when I had River, I wasn't as passionate about, like before having River, I wasn't as passionate about everything that I am now. It was my birth with River that made me super dive into birth work. And
you were planning a home birth?
I was, yes. Yeah. So with River, I had planned a home birth, and Shanoa was actually a doula there for me, which is also, I was talking about that with Shanoa. So I want to get back to that actually. Yeah. Going back to what inspired this growth into my own womanhood and being a goddess, when I started to first refer to myself as a goddess, was when I met Shanoa and I went to those goddess circles. I started learning about my fertility. I'd always had extreme insecurity about my labia, like so extreme insecure about my labia. And my first partner, who was my partner of 6 years, ended up telling me at one point that I had looked so like ragged down there, that it was more ragged than a 30-year-old he had sex with in a hotel. And I was 15 or 14 at the time. Aww. Yeah. So it was just like the most like, yeah. Oh my gosh. Extreme. So I'd always had this like distorted view of my own vulva. And when I met Shanoa and also would attend these goddess circles, it was a common view among women to have distorted views of their vulva.
Well, in our like textbooks and in pornography it's always like very,
there's nothing exterior. It's very tucked away, and
they only show one kind.
Exactly.
Even though like, vulvas, there's a huge variety. A beautiful, like some are more voluptuous and flowery, and other ones are more
pigmentation changes, like texture changes. There's hair like growing in different areas, and oh my gosh, so Shanoa was nice enough to show me a gallery, and I wish I could remember what it was, but it was a professional gallery that you could access online where people all over had donated frontal portraits of their vulvas, just to add to this gallery of vulvas, so that people could see the diversity.
Yes.
And I remember looking at that. I was probably 17 years old at the time, so 10 years ago, and was like, I don't know, it was like seeing everyone else's vulvas redefined my own.
I love that.
Yeah, it was like, I literally like had this moment where I was like, oh, like she's perfect and she is beautiful. And like, I learned about the inside of our vaginas and how, you know, they're not supposed to smell like a perfect flower and all these other things that I was just misled.
I remember using like scented tampons.
Literally.
Like that's a fucking thing.
Dude,
so gross. The fact that they even create that, and it's putting chemicals in.
I will admit, I got bacterial vaginosis after using scented products. Like I got BV, and it's like something, it's like, why are we constantly ushered into using these things that are causing great harm to our body and our complete system? Like not just where we're putting it, but like literally our entire systems are affected by these things. It's crazy. But so that was a huge thing for me. I fell in love with my vulva. I learned my body from the inside out. I knew what my waking temperature was every day and what my
like fertile
discharge
mucus.
was.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that was a huge thing for me. That was like that was a huge, like, pivotal point of me coming into self-awareness. Was just coming into self-awareness of my body.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
that was huge. And that was before I had River. So I'm very lucky that I got that introduction. And then I ended up meeting River's dad years later, who had, like I said, one with another baby on the way. And then I got to be close with the babe. And of course, I really wanted to be a mother myself after that, to another, like a baby of my own womb. So I was lucky enough to have Riv.
Were you consciously conceiving? Was it just sort of like in the air, kind of?
So River, I don't know. I'd like to say that he was conceived in October at a fall festival that we all attend very often. Yes, I think that he was conceived at a fall festival, and the timing comes out because he's born in July. He was not due until July 31st, but he came on July 6th. That is also a crazy story.
Well, let's start at your conception. Like, you conceived, and then when did you realize you were pregnant?
So this is a roller coaster. Sorry, I'm like, my eyes bothering me. But I found out I was pregnant, and then had it's stressful, honestly, because my partner at the time was an alcoholic, and he had 2 children and did not anticipate having a third anytime soon, because he had just had another. So when we did conceive River, Sunny, who was our second at the time that he had, was 5 months old. We had a 5-month-old baby, and we're pregnant with a new one.
Yes.
Very stressful. And it was just kind of a big shift in reality for someone who was already trying to process that they just had another baby.
Yes.
So the ways that he chose to handle what we were experiencing were less than in favor of me or our family as a whole.
Yeah.
Which I have unconditional understanding for now. 5 years later.
At the time
it was devastating.
I'm sure that would have been
tragic. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was a hard thing. When we first found out, he's not an excited person. So that kind of took away from that. And then I had also been admitted to the hospital for pleurisy, which is where the lining of your lungs becomes inflamed, and when you breathe, they rub together.
Yeah, so it hurts. Inhale and exhale.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I got admitted to the hospital for that. And while I was there, they asked me if I was pregnant to take x-rays of my lungs. And I said, yes, I am. And then they had me take a test, and they said, no, you're not. And I said, yes, I am. I just discovered and went and found out I am pregnant.
Yeah.
And they said, no, you're not. And then literally the next day I bled heavily for 8 days.
Wow.
Heavily. And it was really weird. And so I, at that point, thought I had a miscarriage. And then 3 weeks later, I was like, I feel weird.
Yes.
And so I went to the doctor, and I was pregnant. And so I told them that there was no way, because I had just bled heavily for 8 days, and there was just no way. And so they thought I might have a tubal pregnancy and sent me in to get inland imaging to do an ultrasound of my ovaries and everything and see what was happening. And I was pregnant, and I was 7 weeks pregnant, which means that I had
you were pregnant in the hospital when they told you weren't.
That I wasn't. And
medical people are wrong sometimes. They're humans, and
exactly.
and lab things can be incorrect.
So, and then when I was in there getting the ultrasound, which there's always been a curiosity because my mother says that I was a twin also, there was a second torn sac next to River's sac in our ultrasound.
Okay, that was going to be one of my questions.
Was that I dropped a twin is the question that we have thought is that I dropped a twin, which my mother has record of me. I was a twin. She dropped one of us.
Yes.
So there's always been a longstanding joke that River is my twin. I was born at 9:23 a.m. and River was born at 9:23 p.m. 8 days after my own birthday, which is super cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So super cool. Riv's my little cosmic twin. But yeah, just finding out that I was pregnant again with him was like
confirmation.
It was like honestly just like a roller coaster, because I was like pregnant and excited, and then I was like, okay, I'm miscarried, and then I was devastated, and then I found out I was pregnant again, but then I found out that I was pregnant the whole time.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So that was crazy. So I found out I was pregnant officially again with River, and yeah, it was very exciting. I did not tell anyone. I did not, this is all during the day and age of social media. I did not announce on social media until I was in the hospital to have him that I was having a baby.
And yeah, how did that feel to you? That
felt good. Yeah, because it was an intimate thing. I feel like growing our babies should be an intimate thing. And a lot of people are very excited to share that with everyone else. But I really wanted to like soak up what it was. And also, like I said, just the dynamic of River's father at the time and him going through his stuff. It wasn't something that I could broadcast super joyfully, as someone else was mourning part of their life that they would have to let go.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I
love that there are all these different options. Like just because this is the way one person does pregnancy doesn't mean that's the way you have to do it.
Exactly. Like,
I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, it was private the whole time. And I announced just before we were going to have River, because my water broke at 35 weeks and 6 days.
And did you know anyone who had home births, or how did you come to that? Like
the home path? Just Shanoa Durheim. Shanoa Durheim at the time was in training to become a doula. I was one of her births that certified her, which is so cool. Shanoa, you know, when I told her I was pregnant and everything, she was a really big inspiration to the route that I took. And I tried, I planned for a home birth. I went through Spokane midwives, and they have a team of midwives there. I don't know if you're familiar with their practice.
Yes, I had Jane of Spokane Midwives arrived 7 minutes before Odin was born.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So Jane is actually who transferred me when I was pregnant with River. She's the one who answered the call when I was calling to say my water broke.
Before you jump forward, tell me how your water broke, and that's how labor started when you were 35 weeks.
6 days. Yeah, I literally just woke up in the morning in a puddle.
Wow. Yeah. I haven't had the water breaking experience with any of my kids.
I think it's so, you know, I'm a 90s kid and I grew up with Rugrats, and I don't know if you remember the infamous Rugrats movie of like Tommy's mom having dill pickle. Like the beginning of the movie is like her pregnant with dill pickle, and like they're doing a baby shower, and at the baby shower her water breaks, and in the same second her water breaks, it starts storming outside. It's so super funny. There's a goat running around, and it's this big shuffle, and everyone's running to the hospital to get there. But
I'm gonna have to watch that.
Yes,
what comes to my mind when I think water breaking in like movies is like Coneheads.
Oh my
she's like gushes like a floods the basement,
literally. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. You can tell you're not a 90s kid.
I'm 10 years old.
Literally. 80s kid Coneheads. That's so funny.
So your water broke.
My water broke. I literally just woke up in a puddle, and I was really confused, and I was like, did I pee myself? Like, no. This is different. It didn't smell like urine. You know what amniotic fluid smells like. Yeah, it's a very distinct smell.
Yes. Birth smells. And there are distinct birth smells.
Yes.
So like placenta and bloody smell.
Exactly.
After.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. All of it. So it was not pee. So I called my midwife and informed her that I thought my water broke, but I was just leaking. Like I was still leaking,
slowly leaking,
but no labor. So I was just leaking fluid, and there was no labor. And my midwife, because I was before 37 weeks, because 37 weeks is the cutoff for
legally able to have
a
home
home birth.
births.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without any risk.
If you want a medical provider there.
Exactly.
If you do it on your own, that's your own deal.
Exactly. Yeah. So my deemed due date was July 31st, and my water broke, I think, on July 1st or July 2nd is when it broke. And so she ended up having to transfer me because I was before 37 weeks by 1 week and 1 day. Oh, you cannot imagine the frustration with my body. I was literally blaming my body for like this lack of like being able to have my home birth. I'm like a week and a day, you know, just like so defeated. That was a hard lesson. I had a very I kept open mind that anything could happen, but it still shatters you when anything different happens than what you anticipated.
And pregnancy is like this huge build, and like there's so much focus on the birth, not as much on postpartum, which is something I'd love to chat about too. As we move through this, but there's so much energy, and then to have things shift like that, it would be really hard.
It was hard. So I did everything I could to bring my house to the hospital. Jane really so courteously talked to a nurse for a long time on the phone and got me the biggest suite. It was at Deaconess. So I had this really big room in Deaconess Hospital to have River, and I brought my pillows, my bedding. I brought Palo Santo that I couldn't burn, obviously, but I brought it anyway. I brought watercolor paintings of like birds that I had done prior. I brought my singing bowl, and my partner at the time brought his ukulele and was playing music and stuff. And we just like tried to make home in the environment, even though I couldn't be at home. So I'm very grateful for that. We tried in Washington State, and it might be everywhere. I have to talk a little louder above Russ. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I just want people to be able to hear both of you.
Yay.
It's okay to rest.
In Washington State, and maybe I think everywhere, I'm not sure, but in hospitals you cannot birth in the water.
Yeah.
Even though you can birth in the water at a
you can birth in the water, but you can't birth in the, like, they don't want you to birth in the water. Yeah,
exactly. So like they'll let you labor in the water, but if they think that you're
about to give birth, they make you get out.
Make you get gross. They move you. So I wanted to have Riv in the water because I thought that it would help me. I am a Cancer. I'll also put hello podcast. I'm a Cancer. I am the mother zodiac. I thought that water would help me because like of my nature. Like I thought that it would be a thing that was beneficial for me.
And did you labor in the water?
I did labor in the water, but it didn't prove beneficial for me. And also they make you in the hospital get out to urinate. So I had to climb in
home
and
births,
out.
They encourage you to pee in the birthing pool because your urine is sterile.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I had to keep getting in and out of a low ground tub.
Gross.
While I was at the hospital, and I eventually just said screw that and opted to not get back in. And ended up like rolling around with a peanut ball in between my legs and doing all the things. And I did not receive an epidural. I have to back up though, because when they transferred me to the hospital, I wasn't in labor, as I said.
Right.
And so I got there, and the midwife there was aggressive with her approach and said, let's get you, induced. And I was like, absolutely not. That is not what I want to do. I want to veer as far away from that as possible. And so,
something like this. Is that okay with Mama?
Yeah.
Would you like to hold this? Yeah. No, you just want to smile at me. Okay, so aggressive midwife.
Yeah, and she wanted to induce me, and so I expressed that I didn't want that. And she was like, okay, like we just have to have you on antibiotics because my membranes had ruptured. And then also because I was 35 weeks and 6 days, they gave me a shot of steroids in my hip to help River's lungs develop. So much stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I was on antibiotics and got a steroid in my hip and was waiting to go into labor naturally because that's what I wanted. And so they were doing their best to respect that. But with shift change comes a new midwife and new nurses. And I was there for 4 days prior to being induced. I agreed to be induced after 4 days. Yeah. After that midwife, I had a different midwife. I wish I remembered her name. She had purple hair and she literally was telling me stories of birthing babies in Guatemala. Like just the coolest lady. She's like, we can sit here as long as you want to wait to go into labor. No rush at all. Like just, relax. You're gonna have a baby soon. I remember when she asked what the baby's name was and I said his name was River. She said, ooh, be careful, rivers are turbulent. And I will never forget that. I know. Yeah. So
steady and strong. And
yes, so many things. Yes. And River is so many beautiful things. It's crazy. So yeah, shift change. I keep getting a new midwife. It'd be one that was okay, and then one that was not.
It's like every 8 hours, every 4 hours sometimes.
So it was every 12 hours for midwives and every 24 hours for nurses.
This was there for 24 hours
shifts.
Wowza.
Yeah.
All right.
This is in 2016.
Yeah.
Crazy. Before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So that's how that worked. And yeah, I ended up eventually I got
Were you doing
midwife.
like nipple stimulation and other ways?
Yeah, I did
you were
all
trying
of that.
to,
But every time I did nipple stimulation, they required that I be hooked up to the monitor to monitor it because it could be too intense. But they would be willing to like give me
like pharmaceuticals and put things inside your cervix. Oh, buddy.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, so I did try stuff like that for those couple of days. And the day before I had decided to get induced, I woke up at 4 a.m., which is the same time that I woke up from my water broken.
Yes.
I had contractions and then I fell back asleep and they were gone. So it was kind of like a defeating ride getting to the point of being like, yeah, I'll just get induced because whatever. They were also, when I came to the decision, they said that you can wait, like continue to wait for your body to go into labor naturally, but we have to move you down to the birth wing down below if you would like to stay. And we have to move you out of this room. And I was like,
I've been here for 4 days.
Exactly. And I like made home in this room to try to like
and
make this
envision yourself birthing in that space. Wow.
Yeah. So at that point I got induced because I didn't want to be moved out of the room. So yeah, I got induced and then
what sort of
they used they used misoprostolone, cervix softener. It is a cervix softener. A lot of times when people are given Pitocin for induction, it does cause a lot of problems. Usually leads to C-section. Pitocin moves baby down, and if your cervix is not ready or soft for that, you're just moving baby into a brick wall.
Yeah.
And so they gave me misoprostolone first, which I was very grateful. The plan was to do 2 doses of that and then have a dose of Pitocin. So they were going to soften the cervix, move baby down.
Okay.
They gave me 1 dose of misoprostolone at 9 p.m. on the 5th.
And you were not having contractions at this time.
And I fell asleep and woke up at 4 a.m. the next day, the 6th, the day that River was born. 4 a.m. I kept waking up at 4 every time.
Yeah, well, like the hormone levels. A lot of women go into labor those like early hours of the morning because I forget the names of the different hormones, but there's like this magical,
height or peak.
Yes.
So yeah, I woke up and I had contractions. And so I like beeped the nurse and she came in. She was like, oh, this looks good. The thing with the misoprostolone and a lot of stuff that they administer when you're at the hospital is that you couldn't eat for so long after or like drink water for so long after. And so they wanted to give me another dose to like keep it going. And I was like, I really don't feel like, can I just eat first? Because I'm not going to be able to eat after that. And they were like, yeah. And so I ate, and after I ate, my contractions were still steady, and they never ended up giving me a second dose of misoprostolone or a dose of Pitocin. Okay. I never got those. Yeah. I just needed the 1 dose of misoprostolone to get my cervix soft, and things started moving on their own. So from the start to the finish, I had a 17-hour labor. I spent 2 hours pushing. And I did.
And was it like they tell you you're dilated, so now you can push, or did you have the natural urge to
No,
push?
it was very
or...
controlled. The
Okay.
entire thing was very controlled. Yeah. Yeah, it was all very controlled. And I'm trying to think of, I don't know what the name of the medication is, but I did have medical help with pain relief for an hour is what the medicine time frame was. Is a pill that I took.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. I'm like trying to think. But yeah, I got something at one point, and it was just before I transitioned. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I need something.
Yes.
I kept telling my partner I was in a lot of pain, but my partner and I had also established with one another that I did not want an epidural. So my partner honored that for me, which I'm still very grateful for to this day. He honored my boundaries and our plan.
Yes. And it's also so common. I've been to so many births, and almost every woman near transition,
it's like I
almost
can't.
every woman says something along, not those exact words, but something like I can't, or
this is too much.
It often is I can't
relief,
actually.
Or so I got to that point, and I ended up getting some kind of pain relief for an hour, and then I remember asking my partner, and I said, I want something to take the pain away. Like, I need some medicine. And he said, but does the baby need some medicine? And I was like, no, the baby doesn't need medicine. And I chose to not get an epidural.
Which is so hard to do, especially in that environment where they're offering it to you
and they're encouraging it. Yeah, but my partner in that moment, like, that's like one of the most like profound moments with that person. Is when they gave me the opportunity to question for myself too. They just presented me with a question. Yes. Does the baby need the medicine? That was the question he asked me. And I thought about it. The baby doesn't need the medicine. So I'm getting chills thinking about it. That's so cool. But yeah, I ended up not getting an epidural, and then ended up just meeting Rib 2 hours later, and they took him after like a minute.
Tell me about the emergence. How was that for you?
So it wasn't what I had planned or wanted for it. Like, I had imagined like holding my baby and like touching his head when it came out. River's head came out, and they were like, his head's out. And my partner said, it's really big. And then they were like, do you want to touch it? And just that sequence of everything happening, I literally was like, no, I don't want to touch it.
Like, I remember, when Odin was born, and Jane was like, you want to catch him? Because that's something we talked about. I wanted to catch him, but in that moment I was like, no, you do it. I couldn't. I was in this whole like birth space.
So that, I remember him, like, once he came out all the way, they put him on top of me, and I was hot, and he just came out of the inside of my womb. He was hot. Yes. And I was like, ugh, like, I'm gonna vomit. Like, I was just so hot. Like, he gave me the biggest bear hug, and like, I got covered in vernix. My hand had a little cake, little frosting coating on it. And Shanoa had an assistant doula with her who took photos of my birth. Between Shanoa and her, I got some photos of my birth. Not a lot, but there were some. And they got photos of Rib's head coming out. So perfectly and incredible. His first like cry face while the rest of his body's like still inside of me. Amazing. It was so when I had him, I shared those photos, and it was like I feel like it just wasn't common to share photos like that even 5 years ago. It's amazing. Like, very taboo.
It's growing.
Yes, exactly. The reaction was
and like social media used to deem them like pornographic, so they weren't even allowed to show them. Censoring everything.
Community had to like literally come forth and ask Instagram to stop censoring birth and actual motherhood.
Like nursing our babies and things like that.
Stop filtering actual motherhood. Like, so crazy. But
so you said he was born, and then they took him away.
Yes, they did. Yeah, they
But did they give you a reason, or they just like, we're taking your baby?
so a woman was like, hey, do you see that? And like literally like pointed at my baby, like laying on this thing. She was like, you see how his chest is rising and falling very fast? And I was like, yes. And she's like, he's having a hard time breathing. So they took him away for CPAP.
Did you feel the same way?
No.
Yeah.
So they took him away for CPAP, which she only needed for 8 hours after is what they stated. And then he was just in the NICU unit because he was early. Mind you, my baby was born 4 weeks early and weighed 6 pounds and 13 ounces.
Which is a good size baby for
It's a
you.
I'm
Yeah.
like 100-pound woman.
Yes.
I'm a petite lady. So yeah, to have a baby that was technically deemed a month premature, weighs 6 pounds and 13.
Yeah,
I was like,
that sounds crazy.
Sounds so crazy. So
It sounds like he was perfect.
he was perfect. And they kept him in a like big, in the nursery setup that they have in the NICU. They had like the bilirubin lights for him and like said that his bilirubin levels were low, and they had him on a feeding tube rather than having me, like, because I could go with him.
And did they ask for consent?
No,
Or they just
no.
did
They
these
just
things
did
without
that.
your permission?
Exactly. So my child started with the feeding tube because he was just early. That was it.
Were you allowed to be in the space with him? Because it's like a baby room, and you can't,
Exactly.
they don't have rooms like in Europe and other places. They have, even if a baby is on a machine, they have mom right there with them.
Exactly. Yeah. So
the US is
weird. Yeah.
Fucked.
Super fucked. So yeah, no, I wasn't able to see him right away. I had to literally wait until the next day, if I remember. They literally like told me to sleep after I gave birth. And I think I did.
Yeah.
I like vaguely remember. I literally think that I did sleep before I actually got to go see my baby again, which is so weird.
Hard.
But like even now, like if you're at a hospital and a woman gives birth, they like encourage her, like, you need to put your baby down and sleep. Like you need to put your baby down and sleep. You need to like, we can take a baby to the nursery.
No other
so
mammals do
sleep.
that.
I know. Yeah. It's so we're like, yeah, the urgency to separate others, like to separate ourselves from our kin is like,
yes, it's a very interesting cultural thing right now in this time in history. I think we're going to look back at it and be like, what was that all about?
Exactly.
Trying to, get and wanting babies to sleep for long periods of time and nurse on a rigid schedule. All this is bullshit.
All of it. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's just trying to come with the structure. I just feel like there's so much structure that's desired, but why? What structure is it actually providing?
Well, it's so that they can document things.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that they can check boxes and have like a role to play.
An expectation.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I don't understand it.
I don't understand it either. Yeah. So, yeah, they took Rib. He was in the NICU for 12 days.
And did they discharge you?
Like, they did. Yeah, and I was not allowed to stay there, which was like so hard on me.
Yeah.
And yeah, so real hard thing, like while he was in the NICU, like what they were waiting for and what we were waiting for so that I could take him was for him to eat on his own. Let me say, my baby, first from the get, latched perfectly. I was then encouraged by NICU nurses to use a nipple shield, which is a rubber flange, like a plastic silicone
that goes on top of your
flange
nipple.
That goes on top of my nipple to act as like a bigger suction surface or nipple for my child to latch onto. And so I was encouraged to use that with River, even though that I was nursing perfectly fine, which had a hindrance on like
create
my body.
This barrier, put this barrier in between you and your baby. It's so weird.
It's so weird. And because of that, like I like struggled to get my milk supply in the first like days, and also with River, because he was in the NICU unit, like I got discharged and I went home, and my partner was distant and drinking and not at home because they were, like I said, mourning their own
he was having his own life experience.
Exactly. So I got sent home with no baby and no partner. And but just had a postpartum body and nothing to show for it. So that was really weird.
Yes. And your milk, I mean,
Dude, yeah, my milk came in like after 2 days. It's photos that I still show people because they can't believe them. I had like M-sized tits. I always tell
yes.
people, fuck side boob. I had like back boob. They like wrapped around me,
Oh,
you know,
because they were
it was
so
full of milk.
Oh, this milk for your baby.
Yeah, and I didn't have a baby there. And trying to
Aw.
pump was just, I've never responded to a pump. Still, I'm
Yeah.
7 months postpartum with a new baby, and I still do not respond to a pump. So
Pump is not like a physiological.
no,
like,
it's not. It doesn't have
no.
saliva to give my brain a message. It's
no.
plastic and hard and not organic and doesn't flow with my body. And think about a plastic dildo.
Yeah, that's
Like-
not the same as a dick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
a good comparison. I like
Yes,
that.
it does not flow
Yeah.
with your body, with your movement,
No.
with anything that you're trying to achieve. So yeah, they gave me that, and it like hindered my milk coming in, and my milk did finally come in, and my life in those 12 days postpartum was literally pumping every 2 hours and driving to the hospital 3 times a day to go visit River. So I would like go during his feeding hours and like
Mhm.
visit him. And I was also doing this alone because, as I said, my partner at the time was checked out a little bit. And so that was also like hard, you know,
Yes.
in those 12 days of visiting, his father only went with me one time. And it was because I had an ocular migraine and I couldn't see. So I had to like ask him to actually drive for me. But yeah, it was a pretty like isolating journey, feeding River and making sure that he was okay. And I remember while River was in there, I had the nurse, a lady come up to me one day, and she very cold, like directly looks at me in the eyes and says, "Your son has a hole in his heart, but it's very common." And then walked away.
And that doesn't give you any more information about that. So you're just like,
Fucking
my son has a hole in
nothing.
his heart.
Literally, I was like, what the fuck? And so then I talked to like a NICU nurse. I was like, excuse me, like this lady just came in and told me like my kid has a hole in his heart. Can you maybe elaborate? Which she did, and like
Yes.
explain like the arteries of our heart and how like there is often a valve that can be kept open. There's two sides.
And there's the foramen ovale, which is open when they're in utero, and it
Exactly, it
closes
closes.
after they're born, and it can take some time to close,
Exactly.
and that's
That's the hole that
normal
she
and
was referring to.
physiological.
Exactly. So this is the hole that she was referring to.
Yeah.
And so literally, I'm not even kidding. We had like cardiological like appointments after that to like monitor
Assess
his
it.
heart.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
like
freaky.
it
You
wasn't
have
a
this
normal
new-
thing. Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah. And they made it seem like it was very just like extreme that was, yeah. So
Mm.
that was also very traumatic, which we ended up going after, and we got like a paper that I still have that says like, congratulations, the hole is closed, you know, but yeah, just like the whole, yeah.
And just seeing the fear that they ingrained with these different things,
With
and then like
multiple
bait you to
things.
come back for more appointments. And
Yeah, so I actually, I at the time had dreadlocks and tattoos. I had tattoos also, but my dreadlocks especially, I was used to being like profiled for often. There's a lot of stereotype that comes with the hair choice and being a Caucasian appearing female also.
Yes.
So when I was in the NICU, I had a NICU nurse come up to me and tell me, you know, cannabis greatly increases the chances of SIDS.
It's not even true.
And I didn't even smoke cannabis.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And
lady,
this like
you are,
assumption.
yeah, like how fucking rude of you. You just literally like, you're scare tacticing, like with cannabis for one, which is a fucking plant. And for two, I don't even smoke it. You're literally just like judging me off my appearance, you know?
Yeah.
It was so like
Gross.
wild. Yeah, my entire NICU experience was just absolute shit. So what we were waiting for to get River out of there was for him to feed on his own for a full 24 hours. He could not use a feeding tube. Well, shift changes at 6:30 p.m. And if River didn't eat fast enough for the nurse at that shift change, like, or feeding is at 6 and shift changes at 6:30. So if River didn't eat fast enough at the feeding at 6,
Yes.
then they would put a tube in him to go to shift change because, oh, he didn't eat in the 30 minutes that we had to like try to get him to eat. So they would literally like
He's 30 minutes allowed, which is this like
small, my baby takes like 10 minutes just to get a letdown sometimes. Like, it's just like, you know, like just maybe longer than that. Like,
and they make this like some meaningful thing to hold over your head and say that, oh, since he didn't finish, now we have to shove a tube down his throat.
Exactly. And you can't take your baby home again.
Yeah.
So this happened over and over again. And like, it sucked. I would try to get there for feeding so that I could feed him myself because like I said, it's just, they would, jump the gun a little bit. So that happened multiple times and finally ended up like, they finally did like.
Did you ever consider like taking him? I know that's they probably like call child protective services or something stupid, but
at the time I wasn't as empowered as I am now. What I know now, the medical system and everything that I've seen, endured, experienced, seen others experience, like everything, I definitely have more of a voice for myself now. In that moment, I was also in still the position of relying on their assurance. I was relying on
they're
them
the authority.
Exactly.
Which I get. And I grew up in that, and I've only in these last couple of years sort of also found my voice and my own authority over my own body and my children in a way that
it's, and it, like you said, it's just kind of started like even with Russ, he's 7 months old and I've only brought him to the doctor once. But with River, I went to the doctor every 3 months because they told me to. And it just recently occurred to me, like, not everyone in the world is supposed to need a medication. Not everyone in the world is supposed to see a doctor all the time. Usually, like back in the day, if you heard someone saw a doctor or you got a house visit, something was wrong.
Yeah.
It brought curiosity. But now everyone sees doctors all the time. And it's just a normal thing to be at the doctor and have medication and
regular checkups. And now they like incentivize you by like saying, if you bring your baby in for these regular checkups, we'll give you an Amazon gift card.
Yes.
I like got some,
me too.
I think this is so gross.
Yes. From state insurance is what I got it from.
Yes.
That was stating if I brought and it's different if I get them the MR.
If you vaccinate your kids, you get more money or no?
50, yes.
Yeah.
But, and it differs upon vaccination. So if I get these vaccinations, I get a $100 gift card. If I get these vaccinations, I get a $25 gift card.
What? This is disgusting.
Disgusting. And the fact that people even say anything that's happening with the pandemic is like,
toots. Hi.
Yeah, pretty much. It's toots and shit. It's freaking ridiculous. Yeah. So, oh my God. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So your postpartum, your relationship is transitioned. He has 2 babies and
then we had a third.
How was the community? I mean, like, yes, he had
2
an older child and then 2 young,
babies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by the time that we had River, Sunny had just turned a year, literally 2 months before we had River. So we had a newborn, a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Okay.
All boys. And then a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. So crazy.
Was postpartum a surprise to you? Like, I feel like I like have taken care of kids my whole life, has been like first time babysitters for lots of people. And I was still surprised of the intensity of postpartum and sleep deprivation.
Yeah. Yes, I was, but it was also so different. Like I think about my 12 days of River, just like my first 12 days as a mother, River was not with me. So I didn't have nursing all night and I didn't have, the anxiety of waking to see if my baby was awake. And I didn't have diaper changes. Like I just didn't have like a normal routine for those first 12 days postpartum. So I honestly did get to focus on like just sitting and relaxing. But at the time, it wasn't even something that was intentional. I was really surviving my postpartum with River.
Yes.
I didn't have people, and the physical aspect was like, I fractured my tailbone. I forgot to mention that.
In birth.
Pushing River out. His head was huge. Yeah. So that was the most painful thing with my body, my vagina, like nothing else. Everyone said the poop after I gave birth would be like unbearable. The poop was easy. My tailbone hurt so bad.
So like sitting.
Yeah. Like getting up, like even like moving my back from like standing to like,
it
was so excruciating. So that was the hardest like physical thing. I had my placenta taken by Jerry. and she had encapsulated it for me, gave me a placenta print. At the time, I was hoping to take the capsules to help with my, rebuilding my blood and my iron intake, my hormone levels, because it is said to help those things when you consume your placenta. But I know now that I would rather, if I were to do it, consume raw.
Yeah, I had the same experience actually with Hartley and Odin, I had it encapsulated, and then with Charlo, I did raw.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually end up consuming the whole thing.
Yeah.
I didn't feel, I still have some of it in the freezer.
Yeah.
But
Are you gonna plant it?
I would like to plant it once we have our land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to do like raw consumption this time, but ended up just deciding that I would like to plant it.
Yeah.
I follow a birth photographer who did a planting placenta ceremony on her land for her niece.
Aww.
Yeah, her niece was born and she got to like plant the placenta on her property, and there was like photographs and there was a flower ceremony for it and like all this. It was just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I'm very much so in love with that idea. So that's what I'm gonna do. But with Riv, yeah, I had capsules done and I took 4 at a time and was hoping that it would like change, or like I would see a difference. I don't really think that I did see a difference, but I also don't think that I struggled very much with, like, I don't know. I just don't feel I struggled the same. Like this time I have postpartum hair loss and I have all these things. Last time I didn't have postpartum hair loss, and I had dreads. So maybe
it'd be harder to tell with dreads.
Maybe I had dreadlocks, and so I just didn't know. But
I don't know. Even with dreads, I've noticed it like along here, the postpartum hair loss of just like losing the hair that's here. Yeah. I didn't like, all this is like new growth after Charlotte was born, and I've been fine. I don't have as much hair as you.
I don't even feel like I haven't. I used to have so much hair. I've literally lost so much hair in the last 7 months. I had like a morning stage where I would like like find the balls in the shower. I was like, oh yeah. It's a crazy thing what our bodies do.
Yes.
But yeah, I took my capsules. I was thinking that would help with postpartum. When I finally got River again, life was complete.
Yes.
He's so sweet.
For those of you that aren't watching the YouTube, baby Russ is just like giving us all these smiles and cooing and talking and nursing and all
paying attention to our words.
Yes, watching us.
So great. When I got River home, I started co-sleeping. 2 nights I went with him not co-sleeping. And it took me 2 days with my baby at home to realize he belongs in my bed. It took me 2 days. That's it. And then he, like, ever since then, slept with me in my bed, which was something highly advised against. Like, even today, it's still something that I don't advise for you to
in the
sleep.
hospital, even though like all other mammals sleep with their babies.
Exactly.
And
in other countries, it's
encouraged in other countries. There are other hospitals like in Sweden where they have a family bed and they encourage both parents and babies to all sleep in the same bed. And here in the US, they act like you're the devil and you're gonna kill your kid if you sleep with your baby.
Yeah, if they come in and you've fallen asleep with your baby, they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. And like make it a big, they make you feel shameful and like you're endangering your child, which is so gross, as you said. Yeah, we started co-sleeping right away and breastfeeding all the time with River. I was also nursing on demand. My postpartum was rough though, just because I didn't have like support with my partner. Honestly, I know there are so many mothers out there that don't have partners postpartum, and I just,
so hard.
It is hard. It's like, it's hard. It's difficult. I like whether or not I don't want to say that we're all supposed to have partners, because some people definitely, but we're supposed to have community support. We're supposed to have support, and I just didn't have that immediate support that I needed again. And that was like the hardest part. So I actually looked into becoming a postpartum doula.
I offer postpartum dual support for that very reason, because we all need it.
Yeah, we need to be fucking taken care of. I need somebody to
Mhm.
cook me a fucking meal, and I need
And
somebody to
hold the
like
baby so you can take a shower.
exactly, or
poop.
hold me while I just hold the baby.
Yes,
Like that's another
yes.
big thing. I feel like a lot of like
Yes.
postpartum is like, well, let me take your child for you, or let me do this and take the
Yeah.
baby, and let me take the baby out of the vicinity so you can get a nice night of sleep. Like, no, allow me to stay connected with my baby, but
Yes,
support
nourish me and feed me
exactly.
and bring me
Yes.
food. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Or run a bath for me and then hand me baby in the bath if I want baby in the
Yes,
bath with me.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, it's such a huge thing for people to like detach us. It's insane. I just recently, I think I was telling, maybe I didn't tell you, or I
Yeah,
did
I
tell
think
you.
you say it again though. Yeah.
What, that I was just talking to
The person on the phone and she's
Yes,
like, I can get you childcare.
exactly.
And you're like, that's not what I
exactly.
need.
So I just called and reached out for like help with my situation that I'm going through currently. And I was telling the woman about what I'm experiencing, and she like offered to get me childcare so that I could relax. And mind you, I'm telling this woman about my anxieties of being separated from my child.
What is that? Like, did you listen to
Yeah,
me?
like literally, like, what are you talking? No. So yeah, I literally told her that on the phone. I said that would
Mhm.
not help me at all. I need to stay close with my baby. I need to stay connected and attentive with my baby. I don't need somebody to take my baby so that I can
Yeah.
focus on myself.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's crazy the world that we live in. Yeah, postpartum with Riv was just different. It was different with my partner. It was different with like all variables.
Mhm.
It was crazy, but it's what made me, my postpartum experience is what made me want to get into birth work.
Yes.
Which is
Had
very
you
exciting.
done any, had you witnessed birth before you gave birth or anything like that? Or
Yes, with my sister, my older sister,
Okay.
who is an estranged mother now. At the time had 4 kids. And I remember her last baby that she had, my niece Annabella. I went to her house and it's like 6 a.m. and it's before school. You know that morning light where it's light
Yes.
blue and the lights are on inside, so it's all yellow inside, but light
Yes.
blue outside. And
Yes.
just, I don't know, that early morning crispiness.
Yes.
That's what it was like. I went to her house and she was on all fours, rocking back and forth, just like like
In
big
it.
low moans. Yeah.
Yes.
And she was getting ready to go to the hospital, and they went to the hospital, and I remember within like 30 minutes we got a call saying that she had the baby on. Like she had literally waited until
The baby was coming. Yeah.
So inspired by her. My sister is a mother of 4 children, and she cloth diapered 4 children.
Wow.
Yeah. And like, yeah, she was an incredible mother. I was very inspired by her. So I got to see her
Mhm.
give birth, not even to that baby, because that baby I had to stay there to watch the older
Older
babies.
babies, yeah.
Yeah. But I did get to experience that. And then also just before I got pregnant with River, my best friend growing up, who's still a very dear friend of mine, gave birth to my goddaughter. And I got to be there for that also. And that was insane. I got to like be by her side. She gave birth to Hazel 5 months before I gave birth to River.
Ooh, so you were like pregnant when you were witnessing birth.
And she gave birth to her son William 5 months before I gave birth to Russ.
What?
Yes. Yeah. 2 sets.
Amazing.
I know. Super cool. And both 5 months older than the other.
Uh-huh.
So wild.
Okay, so River is 5 now.
Yes. River
And
is
so
5
it was
now.
in this, and how does that relationship feel now? And it was in that time that you became more passionate about birth and started pursuing birth work and started attending births.
Yes.
Then?
Yeah. So after River turned a year, I stayed home his entire first year of life. I like made art and leather work and did whatever I could to financially provide for us so that I could be present. Yeah. And I started leaning into doing birth photography because I love photography. I got a camera from
because you
I
modeled a lot.
Yes, yeah. So I model. So I love photography, and I ended up having a friend while I was pregnant loan me a camera to document my pregnancy journey. And this is the camera that I still pursue birth work with today. Yeah. But it's honestly a weird thing. I hope that John listens to this, the person who gave me the camera, because we've never spoken like since. And I literally, this camera is what I document other families with, a camera that was literally just given to me. So I have a very nice Canon camera that a friend loaned to me that is still a long-standing loan. I don't even understand. So weird to think about. But yeah, I had a friend, Alexandria, who's actually very funny. My husband, who I had recently married, it's his ex. They had dated years prior, but we had known each other for like friends and stuff. And I ended up attending her labor. I was supposed to be there for her birth, but she ended up getting transferred to a hospital and having a C-section for her son. But I got to show up there. And at the time, River was maybe like 13 months old or 14 months old. And I was trying to pump like at the birth because my tits were so swollen. And that was my first like getting back out there and going into work again and like just doing anything. Yeah. And it was,
that's big.
It was super big. Yeah. It was a super big thing for me. And I got to hold space for another mother, which is like huge.
Yes.
It is some very soulful work to do. So that filled my cup up a lot, but I didn't get to see her give birth. It was kind of rough for me, but I didn't get to do that. And I ended up like not pursuing it for a while after that.
You took a break.
Yeah. I also was like in the transition of becoming like more of a single mother, and my partner had like completely left. And I was trying to figure that out. And I had started working. I started working at a coffee stand, which I had worked at and then ended up managing and ended up getting shut down from the pandemic. Yeah. But we have hopes that it's going to open again. But I ended up, through working at the coffee stand, I served coffee to DSHS and CPS workers, strangely enough.
Okay.
Social workers.
All right.
State workers.
Yeah.
It was in a big building called NG. And yeah, those are the people that I serve coffee to. Through that, those people obviously are in our community and they deal with families a lot. So I got to advocate my passions for birth and things like that. And I had a social worker, a lovely woman named Hannah, who was pregnant and invited me to her birth to photograph it.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I got to like get to know all these people that I was serving coffee to, and they got to know me as like a birth nerd and a mama. And honestly, those people are what got me back into my birth photography. I photographed probably 4 people from that office.
Isn't that amazing?
Giving birth. Yeah. So cool.
I love the way life can do that sometimes. And like, you probably didn't expect that this was the population you were then going to be photographing their births as DSHS employees.
Yeah. So crazy. And a multitude of like an array of births, you know, like
different types and places and
different kinds of people. I mean, yeah, I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like you meet people that you know are going to be open to the idea of home birth and holistic care, and then you meet people that are like super far from holistic care and like,
yes, it's interesting right now, like the binaries in culture and the way we want to be like put people in categories and say this and that and this is good and this is bad.
Yeah,
but that's not true. And there can be good hospital births and good home, like you know, and bad births in both places, and it's not about that. It's about the unique experience and feeling empowered and in control. And
so I got to meet an array of women who had all kinds of birth plans. I mean, at the time I was more focused on finding women who wanted to do home births or birth center births and water births and things like that. But it was also because I felt like, I don't know, I honestly didn't think that there was much of like an appeal for a hospital birther to have a birth photographer. And honestly, like a lot of people that I presented it to would say like, why would you want photos of that? You know, like there was a lot of people that I served coffee to that I would tell I'm a birth photographer, and they'd be like, who the fuck photographs birth? Yeah. And they'd be like, oh, you mean like newborn photos? And I'm like, no, I mean like your baby coming out, you know, like So funny, so weird. But yeah, I ended up getting more into the birth photography through serving coffee to these people in my community.
Mhm.
And through that found other opportunities also. I had friends of those people, or just literally word of mouth got out.
Yes.
And I was also doing this stuff by donation, I should mention.
At the time.
Yes, it was pretty much just like me pursuing something, and if you felt like supporting it financially, then do that.
Yes, but
it wasn't
let's be
required.
honest about like how much of a commitment it is
It's
to
huge.
commit to being to someone's birth.
Yes. To be an on-call anything is huge. To be an on-call anything with children on top of that.
Yes.
Because I'm on call to walk away from my kids.
Yeah. And because you don't know when births are going to happen, you're on call for like at least a month period.
For 3 weeks prior and 3 weeks after the due date perceived.
Yeah,
is what
so
I go on
like
call
you're
for.
thinking about it 24, like as you go to bed, you're like, I might get woken up. Or should I have this glass of wine?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Exactly.
Like,
that's literally a huge thing with birth work.
Yeah,
is not being able to fully like commit to other stuff because you just don't know.
You don't know when it's going to happen, and you
No.
want to be
Ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially for birth space.
And you could be at a birth for days.
Okay. So like I had that birth with that mom, and then my second birth after that, the second birth I ever attended was 38-hour labor. And ended up being transferred to a hospital, and she ended up getting a C-section, which was just like so devastating. And there's a photo I have of this mother where she is like one hand up. I want to show it to you while we're doing this.
Yes. I mean, you could even
I totally
show it to
would
the
love
screen.
to.
Yeah.
There's a photo of this mother where she is literally leaning up against her kitchen counter, and she just looks like she's fucking done. And it makes me because it's literally like such a relatable.
Oh, mama.
And this isn't like 30 hours. She's just like, get me the hell out of here. Let's see if I can. But yeah, just like, I don't know, that having that as an experience too was crazy, because I don't know if anyone can see it.
Yeah.
Kind of. Oh, there she is. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally over it. But yeah, and we ended up getting there, and she ended up like getting an epidural, and then like the baby's heart rate was just too all over the place. And so they ended up going in for an emergency C-section. And I was not able to go into the OR because the anesthesiologist at that birth was not supportive of that. So I did not get photos inside of the OR. But
Oh, Russ, are you saying, tell my story now? Tell my story now.
yeah, right. But yeah, birth literally is all over the place. I feel like your birth when I came for Charlotte was like I came early morning, and she was born
shortly after.
I
don't even know how long you were here before she was born.
I got here at like 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. What time was she born?
At 6, at 5:59.
Okay, so yeah, I was literally there for just over an hour, and she was born.
Yeah.
At Ashley's, I literally got there, and I was there for over 24 hours.
Yes, you just
and then I transferred to the hospital with her too.
Yeah, you just never know.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's so crazy. Birth is literally all over the place. So yeah, I was doing work by donation, despite that.
Yes, but now you're not ready to do birth photography yet. But when you get back into it,
yes, when I get back into it, I really want to put like a worth to my like what I'm doing,
because you are
worthy of that. Yeah. And also I've like realized, I also feel like because I am an artist, I was an artist before I was a birth photographer or anything. It's hard to price a painting. It's hard to price a work of art. Especially if you're also a person who comes from like a lower financial dynamic like I do, I have a really hard time charging anyone anything that I myself might not afford.
I know I have a really hard time with this too, having a business that's growing and like even the soap and things that I make.
Yeah.
Because it's like the material costs, but then also the time it takes to make the
Exactly.
product, time it takes to cut each batch of soap,
Yes.
to cure it on the shelf for 4 weeks, to take it off the shelf and put it in a package and wrap it
Yeah.
and then put it somewhere else or mail it or like, and to
Yeah.
create the label that goes around it. There's so many layers.
Yeah, there's so many layers, and it's hard when we live in a world where everything is very industrially like quickly made.
Yes, and like cheap stuff from China.
Exactly.
Like, why would I
So
buy?
like, yeah, why would I buy a bar of soap for $10 when I can literally
Mhm.
get like a bar of Dove for 99 cents?
Yes, which I get.
That's literally how it is out there. And it's like, but it's
Mhm.
hard, but it's also, we aren't taught the importance of having these homemade, like, you know, locally sourced, clean,
Yes.
ethical
Yes.
things for ourselves. We aren't even encouraged to source that. We're just
No.
literally,
And as women, we're devalued all the time. Mothering
yes.
is devalued like in our culture everywhere.
Yes,
And
yeah.
we're
It's
devalued in the
unsupported.
workplace. Like we are paid less
yes.
than men for the exact same job.
Yeah, for the exact same labor that we may do even. It's just like, it's a crazy thing. So yeah,
Mhm.
charging money for anything is almost a place of triggering for me.
Yes, one thing that has helped me to feel more comfortable is I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put this price point on it because I also have to I have to take care of my family.
That's the other thing
and,
is like, you're not just getting your money back, but you also need to make a profit.
yes. So I've done this thing where I have prices set, but then also I have a comment like if you need, you know, like assistance, send me a message and we can talk and we can
Yeah.
like find a place
Yeah,
financially that does work.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to start offering like options to what I'm offering, because the way I've done it has literally just been like,
It doesn't work if you're
It
burnt
doesn't.
out and
well, and at the time it was like, I worked at the coffee stand, and my coworker, my partner at the coffee stand, Sarah, bless her heart, supported my on-call business. So I could literally be serving coffee and get a call, and she would show up and take over the coffee stand so that I could pursue a
'cause
birth.
that's another thing.
Yeah.
If your birth isn't your full-time work, then you also have to, your workplace has to be
Has to
okay
be
with
okay
you
with me being
leaving
on
at a
call.
moment's notice.
Exactly, which was
Which
hard.
most works aren't.
There was like, yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that it was a friend that had hired me, and
Mhm.
I mean, she's the same age as I am. So at the time when we got the coffee stand, she was 23, bought a coffee stand. And
Badass.
yeah, and just like running it, you know, and yeah, she totally supported it. It sucked sometimes. Sometimes she'd be like upset, but I had like a crew of people that was supporting my on-call birth
Mhm.
photography, which
Mhm.
is so fucking cool. And also people that like got excited with me when I come back to the coffee stand with my camera,
Yes.
like to get a bite to eat. I'm like, oh, that was so intense, like leaving downtown. And
Yeah.
it's just like the coolest freaking thing. But yeah, sometimes I walk away from a shift. Like sometimes I walk away from an 8-hour shift that's paying me, you know, whatever my hourly is plus tips. And I would go to this birth and I would photograph the birth. And then sometimes the mom like wouldn't donate anything, you know?
Yes.
That was
And you're
very,
like, oh, that's so hard.
it's a hard thing, but there's also moms to this
But
day.
you also set that expectation
Yes.
that they didn't have to pay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So it's interesting because I've had that too, where I set the boundary that they don't have to
Exactly.
pay. And then
So
when they
then-
don't, but then when they don't offer anything in exchange, it doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't feel good. Yeah, it makes you feel devalued a little bit. But like also, like you said, I put it out there that like if you cannot afford, please do not stress. Like
Mhm.
I think like when you are growing a family, even if you don't have a child already and it's your first child, especially when you already have a child and you're expanding your family, who the fuck has $2,000 to have someone take a picture of you pushing out a baby? Like $2,000.
Yeah, I mean, people do, but a lot of people don't. I didn't.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm backed up on bills. I need that right now. Like, you
Yeah,
know, like I'm
yes,
just
yes.
like, that's not realistic. And I don't like that a lot of people don't get to have the moment captured just
Mhm.
because they can't fucking afford it. Or because they're just as I'm like scared about putting a price on things, people are scared about like putting a price on things themselves. Like, you
Yes,
know,
I
like,
know. Yeah. One woman though that Lisa Masters, she also brought up the point of it's interesting this like the birth photography or postpartum care, like
Yeah.
we're as a culture, women like we don't spend money on those things, but people buy like an $800 stroller.
exactly.
Or
So I just actually saw a friend that literally shared a bunch of resources for their postpartum. They were just like, okay, instead of a registry, we would like meal care and like all this other stuff, you know, like stuff that they actually needed for postpartum, stuff that wasn't materialistic objects that honestly you don't. I feel like there's so much I thought I needed when I had River. But I got nothing now. Like when
Which is so normal,
yeah,
though. I mean, we're
yeah.
in a consumer culture.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had definitely been like conditioned to consume with Riv. I got like the whole perfect nursery and made sure all my furniture in there matched and the paint was right. And I made cute things that he literally tore off the fucking wall and like wrecked. And it's crazy what we think that we need to do before having a baby. Those things don't matter. The paint color on your wall does not matter. That has nothing to do with postpartum. It's so crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely what we are taught to like place value on is different. So yeah, I ran into the problem also of like a lot of people not valuing what I was doing, but also photography. I feel like I am lucky that I have a community of photographers around me that are setting the bar. And I am seeing that people are willing to pay for a skilled photographer for a lot of things. And it is putting in perspective for me, okay, I'm worth it. You're doing something, you need to be like putting a price on it. And like,
yes, these other people are having these exchanges for these larger sums of money. Because it is, I have the same like this like glass ceiling where I think I'm not worth more. And like I've attended births for over a decade.
Literally. That's
I
crazy.
have like, you know, taken care of babies forever and have so much knowledge that I don't even like understand is there until someone else is kind of like, oh, you know this and you know that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I do.
I can really apply myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you have all this experience from having attended all these births and having taken photos and you're in this community.
And I think about that.
Yeah. Value.
Yeah.
You are of great value. There's no one else exactly like you.
Yes. Yeah.
Does this feel like a good time to maybe move towards
Russ's birth?
pregnancy birth?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weird thing to talk about, honestly, with the combination of what I'm going through.
And we don't have to.
We can.
Whatever feels good to you.
We can. Yeah. I'm like, it's okay. I would have to give backstory a little on that.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Okay,
I mean, if you feel like this is a good closing time, we could do that.
I'm like, either way.
He looks like he's gonna fall asleep.
So Russ is a freaking dream come true. Let me say that. I have wanted a second baby for years. And River, when he was 3, 2, started asking me if we could have a baby.
Yeah. How soon after? Like how?
Yeah. Like, well, as soon as he could talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But you wanted another baby when River was like what age-ish?
Oh.
Do you know?
After I separated from his father. I feel like there's some baggage with wanting another baby and thinking it might be with someone who might not be like supportive. This is a really big thing for me. So my partner, after I had separated from River's dad, was not a parental type. He was like the kind of person who was very focused on himself and his goals and he was not familiar with accommodating to other people. And so that did not end up working out. And the next person that I ended up having a connection with was my husband. Who our like first conversation we had ever had, I like asked him like where he was from, and he said he was from California, but that he came here to like settle down with a family. And I was like, oh, so you have like a wife and kids? And he was like, no. And I was like, you came up here to like find a wife and kids? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, huh. Noted. Yeah. I was like, I could be a wife. So literally that's almost how it went down. My husband and I got engaged 3 weeks after and got married 4 months after. Very turbulent. You had a very turbulent partnership as well. Which presents its challenges. I'm like, even couples who've been married and together for 10 years and know and grow with each other have obstacles that they must face once they create life together.
Absolutely.
And,
Like I know people who were married for a decade
yeah,
before they had babies, and
Yeah.
it's still, it
They
changes the entire, your
yeah.
entire life
It's
is never the
changed.
same.
Your dynamic is completely different. Like, I mean, yeah, it's just the service to your partnership comes like a service to your family and service, and then trying to maintain your partnership outside of that. And, like, it's all so much.
Yes, because in mine, yeah, also like pregnant, like getting married fast, pregnant fast, and then but we just didn't really know each other very well, so he didn't understand, like I hadn't gone through those hard times where I needed his support, and so we didn't know how to support me. So it's been like a really quick learning curve, and also some really lots of unmet expectations that I had too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I feel like so much of it has to do with how you guys go in about like navigating it, you know. I am unfortunately being divorced now, which I've spoken to Amana about. I cannot say why this is happening because I honestly don't know. But I am my husband and I had met and decided that
stand or whatever you can too.
it's okay. I think he's just so close. But so yeah, so my husband and I, we met, we got engaged, we got married, we tried conceiving and did not have luck, which is so, I love that society portrays like
your whole life you're trying not to get pregnant.
Exactly. And then you try and sometimes it's impossible for people. We tried extensively for 3 months prior to separating. We separated for 6 months during our first year of marriage, which is very different for a lot of people to witness, but it was part of our process. We were, as you said, we didn't know each other. And so learning how to support one another and how to communicate with one another was an extensive journey. And it caused us to separate for a while. But upon getting back together, we obviously did not conceive in those 3 months that we had tried. Upon getting back together, the first time that we fornicated, we conceived Russ, which is insane because we tried for months prior.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Couldn't do it. And this is with knowing my body.
Yes, like
knowing when
your
I'm
fertile
ovulating.
window is,
Yes.
being like, give it to me right now.
Yeah, exactly. This is with knowing my body. I could not conceive with him. It just wouldn't happen. So we separated and then we came back together. I wrote my husband a letter and told him it's a choice. Like I can choose to walk away and never talk to you again, or I can choose to be here and commit to you. And I am capable of both.
Yes.
So it's a choice. And we chose to commit to us. And so yeah, the first time we fornicated, conceived Russ. I literally was pregnant the same month that we got together.
Yes.
Which
and
was,
his due date was
his
first due date, right? Was
yes.
same as Bloom's.
Yes. And then his second due date was the same as his father's.
Oh yes.
Yes. Yeah. So it first was May 14th or March 16th.
Yes.
March 16th was the first one. And then they had told me it was March 14th after that, which ended up being his father's own due date when he was in the 80s.
Wow.
Yeah. His due date was March 14th or March 14th. So that was super crazy. I'm going to put you to sleep, my guy. Sorry.
He's like, I want to fall asleep.
Literally.
I don't.
Yeah. So that was super ironic.
And so at that point, you guys were in a good space, or what would you say about where you were at?
I mean, we were in a good space. We were also still struggling. I mean, we were still doing the dynamic of like parenting together. That's another thing. My husband had never been a parent, you know, and when he got into a partnership with me, he was then a step parent to River. And River was in diapers still at that time. So he had to change a diaper then. And like, totally like took that on though. It was really cool. Part of the reason I fell so in love with my husband is that he was like showing up as that person that I really like did not have when River was younger. He was being that person then. So it was a really big thing for me. Even just like when my husband and I though like first met and he asked me if I wanted to have more babies, I told him I wanted to have more babies if I got married.
If you got married, yes.
And found the one. So we got married.
Yes.
Yeah, he was very adamant about that. So yeah, we got married and we separated, got back together, conceived Russ.
And what was his pregnancy like for you?
Awful. It was nothing I thought it would be. I was
super
sick.
different than River's.
River's pregnancy, I forgot to say that earlier, but I had a blissful pregnancy with River. I didn't puke once. I never even got nauseous. I think I got nauseous once, and it was while I was like there in imaging to get like an ultrasound, and it was because of nerves.
Yeah,
I was just like, oh God, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't even puke while I was in labor. I had a 17-hour labor and didn't vomit, like fucking gold medal. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. So totally different. This season. This season with Russ has been incredibly different because I was sick the whole time. I was sick before I found out, and then it made sense when I found out, and then I was sick after. I remember they say 14 weeks, maybe it'll stop. 14 weeks went by, and then they say 20 weeks, maybe it'll stop. Bullshit. 20 weeks went. I was like, nope. And then they're like, maybe the third trimester, and I'm like, maybe. No. I threw up the whole time.
Yeah, that's how it was with Charlot's too. And I remember communicating with you about the nausea, and like you were like, only these couple of things feel edible, and you were like,
so a lot
would go
of
to for like particular things, and I remember that too.
yes,
Like,
yeah.
so many aversions.
I had to find what worked for me. I also like a lot of, which I didn't know in my first pregnancy at all, which is a really interesting thing to learn in my second pregnancy, was that my nausea and my morning sickness was low blood sugar. That was it.
Yes. So for you, that was the thing. You had to keep eating.
I had to keep eating. I just always had to have, like, if my blood sugar was low, that's when I started getting nauseous. So, and when you're like nauseous, it's hard to keep your blood sugar up. Like, who wants
when you're
to eat
nauseous,
something?
you don't want to eat.
No, especially, like all the things that people try to offer you when your blood sugar is low is so nauseating. It was a really rough thing. I consumed cannabis, which I did not with my first. It was like
with the nausea.
Yes, it helped with my nausea. It helped me get an appetite. It helped me get hungry to the point of bypassing my discomforts.
Yes.
So that I could eat.
Yes.
So that was definitely different. I got a lot of backlash,
Yeah. I mean, with Charlo,
Yeah.
like I also did.
Yeah.
And when I was pregnant with Hartley, I tried some of the pharmaceuticals, and I was definitely grew up in like the medical mindset, and that pharmaceuticals are better than plants.
I've never even asked you about your pregnancy with.
And yeah, with Hartley, I was super nauseous too.
Yeah.
But and yeah, in Charlotte's pregnancy, I consumed cannabis because it allowed me to eat.
Yeah.
And like I remember every time I consumed it, I was like so grateful. I was like, thank God this exists.
Literally.
Thank you. And
Same.
like, yeah, it felt so like this like gift from the earth.
Yeah.
That helped me to continue to nourish my body to some certain extent.
Literally, it's like you were blocked while you're pregnant, and cannabis would open that passage to nourishment for you.
But I had a lot of shame.
Same.
And like feeling like I would be judged the way I wouldn't have been judged had I been taking a pharmaceutical, which pharmaceuticals, like we act as though they don't have effects, but people have probably now seen commercials like Zofran that they give to women for nausea in pregnancy can then cause cleft palate and other issues.
Yeah.
So you just have to, I found for myself, I just have to like, I have been so trained in the past to like look to other people to tell me what's good and okay.
Exactly.
And now I'm stepping into like, no, what do I feel is really good and okay? And does this cannabis feel good to me in a way that the pharmaceutical doesn't? Or like,
Yes.
what are the risks and benefits of both? And what feels right? And for me, consuming cannabis in her
Felt
pregnancy
right. Yeah.
felt right. And
I feel the same way.
Mhm.
It felt right for me. A lot of this birth with Russ was intuition. I'm sure you can relate when I speak about the anxieties of
Mhm.
carrying and not knowing what's going on
Mhm.
inside.
Mhm.
This last pregnancy, I didn't get an ultrasound.
Mhm.
I didn't do anything with River. I got ultrasounds, I got pictures, I heard his heartbeat a lot, and it was just different. I was like very monitored the whole pregnancy. This time I had a midwife, Kathy Weston, who is an elder midwife in our community and maybe retiring.
Yes, she's retiring at the end of this year.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh. Kathy West and I had worked with at Other Birds, so I had got to work with her prior and see her, and she's got this firm motherly energy.
Yeah, she's not my midwife. She's
Yeah.
not for me. I
Yeah.
have attended births with her.
I know. I
but-
remember telling you about her, and you were like, "Oh," but I like remember telling you that I needed somebody who was like motherly, but also firm. Like I
Mhm.
needed somebody who would be like, "Rickanna, you can fucking do this. You need to put your big girl pants on." Like I needed somebody who could do that, but also be the nurturer and the motherly kind of support that I needed. So Kathy
Yes.
was that for me.
Yes. No, I love that. I mean, because we should have diverse midwives, just like we have diverse women, because we need different
Yes.
types of support and
Yes.
different births. Maybe you would choose a different woman for different births. And
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
I feel that so hard. There are doulas that like are, I feel like even myself, like I'm not super hands-on, which sometimes I get discouraged about. Like, should I be more like
doing something?
Yeah, exactly. But there's also part of me is the kind of person that's triggered by that person that's like just wanting to rub your feet or or like just constantly giving you the whiny voice. It's like, oh, mama, and like stuff like that. Like
Yes.
the array of care that you can receive is insane. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely not everyone is for everyone. Kathy Weston was for me.
Yes.
I stand by that.
Yes. I like the phrase where they talk about like you could be the most like delicious, perfectly ripe peach. And people could still
hate peaches. Yeah.
And I trust that now more. Like I am not for every woman.
This is what I'm experiencing with my divorce,
Mhm.
honestly, is something that I have to remind myself. It's like I can be as plump and ripe as possible, as you said, but there's going to be somebody out there who doesn't like that.
Yep.
So trusting what is meant for me is meant for me. Kathy was meant for me. I ended up. Are you so tired? I ended up having a birth doula also that was supposed to be there, Michelle Morris, but Michelle ended up having COVID just prior. And so she did not come. And my on-call that came with to assist was your past midwife, Tammy Roloff.
Yes. Neighbor. She lives a few doors down from me right here.
Tammy ended up coming to attend my birth and assist instead of Michelle. And then Michelle's backup doula was my birth photographer that I had already hired. It was such a tight-knit web of women. Yeah. So cool. Oh my gosh. I think about that and I'm just like, what? She was like, I'm coming over right now to visit. I was just calling my backup doula to inform her I'm picking up a new client. I gave her your name. She informed me she'd already be there. I was like, oh, so cool. But yeah, where was I going with this? Talking about my care.
You're sort of transitioning into Russ's birth and who was going to be there.
Well, just like my postpartum or my prenatal care, I think is why I started talking about Kathy, is because I didn't get a ultrasound. I didn't get any of these things done that I had gotten done prior with Rivers. I didn't know if Russ had 5 fingers and toes on each, I just didn't know if he had all his limbs or what his profile, like face like looked like, what his nose, like I didn't know anything. And it caused me anxiety, honestly. If I'm being completely honest.
Mhm.
It was hard to have trust my entire pregnancy. It was hard
Yes.
to run with like trusting. There's still that anxiety of like, what if,
Mhm.
So-
Yes, because with Charlotte too, I
yeah, exactly.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, it's from a place of fear, honestly. And I don't know why, but yeah,
I feel like it's a practice because it's like
it is.
of learning to trust, and also sometimes if an ultrasound would take away the anxiety and that would feel good to a mom,
I was
like,
offered it multiple times.
I
Yeah.
support moms to do what
I know, yeah.
feels
I
right to
was offered
them.
it multiple times. And she even
Mhm.
asked me if it would take away my anxiety if I got an ultrasound, but no,
But there's something about sitting with that though,
Yeah.
too, knowing that it's available, but also choosing not to,
Yeah.
and being okay with the like uncomfortability that it makes
Yeah,
us and what you may
exactly.
feel. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've learned to sit within discomfort so much in the last 3 years, I feel like, especially. You
Little baby Ross is so close to falling
So
asleep, but
tired
we're
of
distracting him,
sleeping.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so yeah, it caused me anxiety. I didn't know I didn't do a sex, like a gender discovery. You did
I did a
yours
blood
via a
test.
blood test.
Yeah.
And so I also I asked you, I remember I asked you for that information so I
Uh-huh.
could present it to my midwife, and I did, and she said we could do it. And then I think she just like casually said we didn't have to, and then my husband casually said we didn't need to, and then I was like, if you don't care to know, then yeah, let's just totally have a surprise. Yeah. I was fully on, like, we were going to discover, but then it was when my husband was like, well, I don't really care. I was like, yeah, okay, so let's just keep this surprise. So it was a surprise. And we didn't know the gender or anything, which is also, it gave me anxiety for whatever reason. I just feel like we live in a day and age where everything is targeted to gender. Boy clothes, female clothes, like it's just all, and so not having a lane to pick, I guess, was different. We did a lot of like neutral stuff, and like the talk of like it being a boy or girl was funny. So I do have to say, like, the whole time that we were growing him, all like the wives' tales of like, oh, if you carry low, or if you have heartburn, they have hair, like whatever,
Yes.
Just like all the shit. I had River born with a full head of hair, and I never had heartburn a day in my life, and like there's just so many things that are just like, it's funny what we say to try to like, I don't know,
project our
exactly
onto each other.
Literally.
I mean, we do it to each other, which is so interesting.
Exactly. Well, and these things have been handed down through generations at this point. So it's like, but
they're so almost like secondhand, like not, what am I trying to say? Just like
second nature.
Yeah. We don't even really think about it.
It's just, literally,
until
which is
maybe
weird.
like reflecting back.
Yeah.
Why? Or
also how insane that people know stuff like that but don't know stuff about like their actual body and birth. We know about the wives' tale around birth, but we don't know how it actually works. It's so funny, weird, but what was I saying? What was I just saying?
Well, you were talking about anxiety and not knowing his gender.
Yes.
And picking out like clothes.
Oh, yes, that also, not being able to pick a lane with his gender. That also caused
like outside people always are asking.
Well, and then names also, which is another thing that came up with the gender and like trying to pick a name. We thought forever I was going to be Rain because it was neutral and it started with R, and all of us have names that start with R.
And I loved your two different spellings.
Yes.
The rain and the rain.
He came on a rainy day, and it was a spring day too. It was Easter day he was born. But so my husband and I literally like 3 weeks before we had the baby, or maybe 4 weeks, or I don't know, we had him late, but I'll get to that also. My husband and I shook on if it was a boy, he could name him. And if it was a girl, I could name her.
Okay.
And
And?
that's how Russell Eugene Daley came about, named after his father,
second?
Russell Eugene Daley the third.
Okay, so he's the fourth?
He's the third.
He's the third, okay.
He's the third. Yeah. So that was also why we kind of were like, I was okay with it. It seemed pretty cool. I am the furthest thing from traditional and going by what my family goes by.
Mhm.
I believe in evolution. So continuing on things like that is not the first thought to me. Like I would never think to name my baby my name because they are their own identity. Like they're their own person.
But you were okay with
yeah,
that for
because I
him.
understand that other families, that's a very
have different practices.
and this is something that's been going on since the dawn of human civilization. We have honored our family by naming our family after other ancestors. So
yes. I mean, with our last name, like, right? I
exactly.
mean, that is still happening. Yeah,
exactly. So I understand and honor the traditional aspect of it. But yeah, so he wanted Russell Eugene Daley. I wanted Rune
Ooh, I
Tamara
like that.
Jane. Yeah, it was gonna be his name if it was a girl. So I guess I could talk about my labor.
Yeah, and or how labor started. Yeah, and
It
you
was
said
weird.
so nausea. You had nausea till the
The whole
whole
thing. Yeah.
pregnancy.
The whole pregnancy. I like literally, and it'd be random. Like we could be like going to a friend's house and I'd be like, you need to pull over. And I just like throw up violently before going in somewhere.
Yes, I would
so
love
hard.
to like pause and connect about like that the isolatingness of the nausea and pregnancy. Because for me, I didn't want to make plans because I never knew when I was gonna. Because every day I felt nauseous and puking, and some days were a little bit better than others. And I was like smoking cannabis.
Exactly.
And so then I didn't really. Then I would feel awkward and not want to like meet people then because of that.
Yep. Yeah. No. Same. Exactly.
So I felt super isolated and I was depressed in her pregnant. It was so hard. I was like so happy that I was growing this girl and growing my baby. And yet I was also like super depressed and felt like a shitty mom because I couldn't play with my son in the same ways that I was playing with him before.
That's another thing. It's just having to grow life while you're taking care of another life outside of you. So like pregnancy with Hartley obviously was different than because of circumstances.
Yes.
Pregnancy with Odin, different. Pregnancy with Charlotte, though, you had another life to care for, sustain, be present for,
be attentive and knew his life was about to change when this baby was born. And
so
yet,
you want to be the most attentive, but you couldn't.
And and he'd be like, can we go to the park? And I'd be like, I just need to lay here
Literally.
right now. But like it broke my heart.
I still even feel that postpartum.
Yes.
You know,
totally.
So like I don't know about you, but there's days like even now, like where like I have to just like lay and nurse Russ for a while, and River wants me to play. He's asking me all day, you know, Mama, can you do this? Or Mama, can you come look? Yeah, he's 5, so he wants me to look at everything every other second, and I'm like, I can't. I can't. Like I can't get up and keep walking in and out of the room, and it's just crazy. And it makes me feel it makes me feel bad. I feel like I'm not being the best mother that I can be because I have somebody else to attend to. And while pregnant, trying to attend to myself was hard. Like trying to just make sure that I was taken care of was hard. So doing that and taking care of another person, and it's so much, and it is isolating, like you said, not wanting to like go places. That was also a thing. Like I said, often we'd like try to go places and I would get sick on the way. And like I remember showing up to a friend's house and like they like doused me in peppermint oil, and like we're trying so hard to like
everyone has all the suggestions of what's going to help the nausea, and just like for me, I tried all the things before I tried cannabis. And the other things did not.
It didn't work. Yep. Yeah, it was a very isolating experience. Also hard for my like partner to sympathize.
Yes, and they can't understand. They can't understand.
No, you can't even understand. You know, that's like the hardest thing. It's like I'm having a hard time understanding what's happening to my body.
Yeah.
Let alone having the emotional capacity to explain it to you. when I don't
Yes.
even know how to articulate it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, holy shit. Also, it's hard to see somebody do that. Like, I remember before getting pregnant with Russ, I was literally like phobic about vomit. Like, if I
Ooh.
heard someone vomit,
Yeah.
I would get like, "Ugh," like I would get.
Yeah.
I didn't vomit for 13 years. The last time I had puked was when I was 8 years old. And from 8 years old, the next time was when I got pregnant with Russell. I had
I
not
did not
puked
know
in
that.
13
It's
years.
incredible.
Fucking insane.
Does it come out your nose?
Yeah, it
It
did.
comes out my nose, and
Yeah.
I hate it.
And
I remember
so,
like,
yeah,
oh, like
literally.
chunks getting stuck in there, and having to blow
Blowing-
them out, and that would just make me like puke
Puke
more.
again. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Just so fucking.
And then the smell is in your nose.
Yeah, so I don't have a phobia anymore. Let me just say that. I feel like the universe is like, bitch, you can't have 2 kids and be scared of puke. Like, that's not a thing.
I'm just gonna puke every day. For like 9
Literally,
months.
exactly. And you're gonna get really desensitized. You're just not even gonna care anymore. You're gonna catch vomit with your hands someday, and it's gonna be the best decision you made because it didn't hit your carpet. Like,
Yeah, I had all these like puke bags with me everywhere. I was at work and like puking in the stairwells. I'm just like,
yeah,
oh.
it's awful.
Yeah.
And nobody can sympathize in that moment. There's
No.
nothing that makes you feel seen or heard, or it's just,
No.
yeah, it's such a struggle. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Surviving that was huge. Also, feeling like you're trying to like nourish your baby and put on weight.
Yes.
And you're
Yes.
like, sweet, I just ate this amazing meal with all these nutrients. And then
Here it comes.
yeah, literally.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sometimes you can even think like, wow, I'm feeling really good today. I'm gonna eat this meal, and you can eat it and it can sit well for like a half hour. And then you're like, are you kidding me? I'm gonna throw up. Like, if it just knowing too. I always had like a feeling I could know, like, when I was like, is this just nausea, or is this gonna arise into like a full blown,
Yes.
like nausea puking spell?
Yes.
So rough.
I am gonna hit pause and pee,
Yes.
and we'll come back to Russ's. I just took a little pee break. Baby Russ is totally passed out and happy.
Okay, so we were talking about not knowing anything, navigating my pregnancy with trust. My pregnancy was also super hard on my marriage. My husband and I, like I said, we got together so fast that we've had to navigate a lot of things without knowing how to with one another. We haven't had a lot of experience to like know how to navigate a lot with each other. So this whole time has been rather like a lot on us in a partnership. My husband comes from a family also with a lot of cancer survivors.
Okay.
So their trust in the medical system is definitely
Right.
different than my own.
Yeah.
And I respect that. My husband also respected my wishes, though, of wanting to do a home birth and to not have this overhead of the medical system. So I'm very grateful for that. But his parents came. I invited them to come to our birth. I asked my husband prior to having Russ, like a month before. And at this point, I was full term. Because I went to 43 weeks, I should say that.
Yes.
I gave birth on the day of 43
weeks.
Yes.
Which is a variation of normal.
It was perfect for me, and technically a week early to what my cycle is, because most gestational periods are based off of a woman having a 28-day cycle. And I consistently have a 31-day cycle, which is an extra 3 days. So 3 times 10 is an extra 30 days to my gestational period, technically, So I had him at 43 weeks perfectly.
And how did labor begin for you?
Well, I was going to say first,
I
invited my in-laws to come.
Okay. Yes.
which is super, I'm pretty sure every woman out there who's listening to this probably relates to inviting in-laws to their birth space. Like, I don't know.
Yes. I mean, I had my mother-in-law here, but I
I
had had
know.
relationship with her over years.
Exactly.
And she had home births, and
So,
she was supportive of my
literally,
birthing
yeah.
choices, where I couldn't have my own mother. I couldn't have had
So,
my own mother
I
at
didn't
her
invite
birth.
my own mother at my birth.
Yeah.
That's another thing. I invited my husband's parents, but I did not invite my own. But it was also circumstantial. And also I wanted to honor what my partner wanted. My partner is he has 2 siblings and they both have children and wives already. My partner was the last person of his family to have
pair.
to have the whole big package. And I wanted to honor like what he thought the process should be, and he wanted his parents there. And so I invited them, which came with like setting boundaries though, you know.
Good.
I remember when I told my mother-in-law, like, well, when I invited her, I was like, hey, like I wanted to formally ask you if you would like to be present. The first thing she said was that my husband would need his daddy.
What?
I literally got so defensive. I went like across the property. I like shut down, like had a whole like crying mental break and had to come back to her.
Because you were intending to only invite her and not,
well, I was
or you were inviting both
I was
of them?
inviting both of them.
Okay.
But the fact that she thinks that we need anyone else at all,
yeah,
pissed me the fuck off. I'm like, sorry, but this is our birth. We only need each other. Like, we don't need mommy and daddy here at all. Like, I was triggered. I was super triggered, but also we come from like society where like we're not taught to know our power in our birthing space. So even having to teach my husband our own power was huge.
Yes.
You know, trying to convince my husband that we don't need the medical overhead or that we don't need this, that, and X, Y, Z, and whatever he had been conditioned and like society makes us feel that is necessary when we birth a human. It was very hard to like even get my partner on the same page, but then also like express these things to his parents.
Yes. So what was that process like setting those, you said you set boundaries with
I
them
did.
around their presence at your birth.
Yeah, I
Talk
ended
to me
up,
about that.
I had, well, so after she had said that, I literally got super upset and ended up like walking across the property. We have property in Priest River is where this happened. And I just kind of like got emotional, but I ended up being transparent with her about it. And she came over to like visit me. And I was just like, you know, when you just said that my partner would need his daddy, it made me upset because it makes me realize that you don't acknowledge the importance of him and I, like the importance of our bond, you know, and still in my circumstances being divorced now by this person, those people still fail to acknowledge my bond with this person. So at the time, it was just like very important for me to get across, like, regardless of me asking you to be here, I'm not asking you because you are needed here. I'm asking you because like you are wanted here. And we're like opening the door for you to be present in our journey. But first and foremost, it is our fucking journey, you know, like more importantly than you guys being here to support my partner needs to feel confident in doing this with me and like confident in our ability. And like, it's always been a thing for me to foster our partnership, you know, and to nurture our bond and our capabilities as a team. Yeah, exactly. And so my in-laws were just very much so, I don't know, their approach was different. So I ended up setting boundaries and told her, and she even was like, I'm sorry, I said that like, as in like, I know that he'll want support like from someone else. Like, it's just like it just all came off weird. It made me feel weird, but I ended up having them present anyway. My husband was born early. His birthday is February 26th, even though his due date was March 14th. And so I was under the impression, because River came early and that my husband also might have came early, that Russ would also probably come early. Not the case at all. At like 20 or at 38 weeks, or at 35 weeks even, I got anxious because my water broke at 35 weeks of river. So I was like anticipating, honestly, my water breaking early. Even though I did do things this time to help strengthen my bulge, my bag of waters. I like my amniotic sac. I like looked into ways to thicken my amniotic sac in case it was that it was thin. I don't know why my water broke with Rib deemed early. I honestly think that he came out perfect. I did not get to say this earlier in the podcast, but I've talked to so many midwives and medical professionals since that have also like weighed in on Rib's birth and experience and feel a lot of it was pharmaceutically profitable. A lot of it was a means of profit for a system outside of my family system.
Yeah, sabotaged.
Yeah, exactly. Unnecessary.
Yeah.
Him being taken, like all of it. So yeah, this time I was anxious at 35 weeks. My water did not break. I reached 38 weeks and was thinking maybe he's going to come now.
I remember you being like, I've been pregnant for longer than I've ever been pregnant before.
Like I hit, 36 weeks because my water broke. Like, it was just like, this is the longest I've ever been pregnant. And like, this is the longest I've ever carried a baby. It was so like
little did
surreal.
you know it would like carry on even
go
longer.
after. I really anticipated him coming early. Like my husband wanted to go to a go-kart event the weekend of his birthday, and I almost like didn't, because it was in Moses Lake, and I'm like, that's too far if I go into labor. And little did I know he was so perfectly content cooking in there still. But 40 weeks came and I thought for sure, and then 41 weeks and 42 weeks, and I reached 43 weeks. The whole week prior to going into labor, I had contractions every night consistently. So like pre-labor contractions.
Yes.
A lot of stuff that I always thought was Braxton Hicks. I was very bad at drinking water while I'm pregnant. I'm very bad at drinking water always, but I was bad while I was pregnant.
And when you're puking, you're losing it. You drink it and then it comes back up.
Exactly. It's a defeating process, honestly. So it wasn't good with drinking water, and not drinking water also makes you have Braxton Hicks.
Yes.
So a lot of the time I would just be like, oh, I need to drink my water, drink water every time I have Braxton Hicks. But the whole week prior to having Russ, I was having Braxton Hicks every night, and they would be like consistent intervals, I would have contractions for 2 hours, 8 minutes apart.
And you're like, is this it?
Yeah.
Is this the start?
Exactly. Yeah. And that happened every night. And I go to sleep and be like, okay, like if we wake up, like, didn't happen. And then on the day that I did wake up and was like in labor, I didn't think I was at all. Like I was talking to my husband and was like, well, they're consistent, but like, this is fine.
They feel similar.
Yeah.
They felt similar to your other like practice contractions.
Yeah, exactly. It's Braxton Hicks, because they were also all over the place, like 6 minutes apart, 10 minutes apart, 7 minutes apart, 12 minutes apart.
Yes.
But I was taught, I felt like from what I knew, even now, I've been around births.
Yeah.
And even then I thought for sure that like it would be consistent. But like I also had to remember my last labor and feeling what labor starts as was induced by a pharmaceutical.
True.
So completely different experience, and I thought because they were kind of all over the place that it wasn't labor. And it was also so mild. It was like Braxton Hicks, like I said. They
started very gentle.
Yes, very gentle. It was just like Braxton Hicks, like I said. The only thing that made me like think that it was serious was that I woke up from one. Yeah. That's what it was. I woke up at like 5 a.m. and was like, oh, I felt like I woke up to like feeling my stomach tighten. And I was like, okay. And then like talked to my husband about it. And he was like, you should call the midwife. I was like, I really don't think I'm in labor. He's like, no, I'm pretty sure this is why we have a midwife. It's so that we can call her when you're in labor. You can call her. And so I ended up calling her, and I just told her the same thing. I was just like, I'm just kind of having Braxton Hicks. They were kind of consistent last night before going to bed, but that's been every night. But I just kind of like woke up to one. And she was like, you're in labor. And I was like, no, it was just one though. It was just the one. Like everyone since has been fine. She's like, no, that was the one. You're in labor right now. And so that was at 6:30 when I called her at 6:30 in the morning. I drove to Little Euro. I got a breakfast sandwich.
Good.
I tried to eat it, did not eat it. So that's also a sign that I was in labor.
Yes.
Yeah. And
when did you like acknowledge or feel like you were really in labor? How long was it?
7 a.m.
Okay.
It took another half hour.
Yeah. Like, okay,
it took another half hour, like maybe hour. And then I was like, oh, all right, like, I guess. And so I had my husband call his parents. His parents showed up at like 8:30 a.m., somewhere in between there. We started driving down them and came shortly after, I forget. And then I had the birth photographer show up. Honestly, my entire labor was really relaxing and really easeful. And it was like fully present. And then I'd have a contraction and then I'd come back to my presence, you know, like
it's incredible witnessing women in labor.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's insane. The way we ride our waves and create our waves.
Like during contraction, women like stop talking and
exactly.
are in this zone for a minute and then it's over. Then they're like,
okay,
so
exactly.
It's so bizarre.
It's so bizarre. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just rode those waves. And like I said, just had these moments of being fully present. And then I would check out for my contractions. My in-laws, when they came in, I was in underwear. I know that my like father-in-law was really like, what are we about to see? You know, like coming into a birth space.
Yes.
So funny. And I ended up just like stripping down and it was fine. I just, you know, like I feel like people have this idea of how things are supposed to be, and truly letting it unfold was so blissful. That my birth was a dream. Kathy showed up with Tammy, who I had not met, like
yes, you were doing her doula course, but
yes,
you hadn't met her.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot to say that also. I started her doula course before I met my husband, and then I got married, and so I didn't attend class. Little did I know at the same time she was experiencing a very big transition.
Yes.
And so she's very understanding of me not attending class. And yeah, I never got to continue. There was a pandemic, but she showed up at my birth and it was like, what? They let me do my own thing. I'm pretty sure like even my husband would, like, if you were to ask him about our birth, would say that we birthed our baby entirely by ourselves, you know, which is so amazing. I rocked back and forth a lot and walked around and paced. I would, you know, do like low octave breathing and moaning. When I was having my surges, I had my partner do hip compression, like squeezing
the hips in.
Yes, I asked my my birth photographer, who is also a certified doula, to step in just for 1 second. I was like, hey, would you mind showing my husband how to squeeze my hips? And she was like, no problem. So literally just stepped in for a second, applied pressure and showed him where and how.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of the show, he was on it, which was so incredible. I can honestly say that's like the biggest relief that I had was my partner applying counter pressure to my contractions. I did get in the water because, again, I thought that my cancer self would be soothed by water. Not the fucking case, dude. I have discovered water's not for me. And honestly, there's like a story my mom says of me almost drowning when I was 3 years old. And like, I almost drowned it again when I was in 4th grade. And like, there's quite a journey of me almost losing life to water. So I got in the water again and like had the birth pool, but it just made me like like tense, honestly. And also the water that they put into a birth pool, usually to calm and comfort a mother, is hot. It's warm water. Heat does not comfort me. Heat gives me heart palpitations and anxiety. Like heat, being hot, literally makes me feel anxious and uneasy. And so being in a pool of hot ass water, I literally just started going backwards. I feel like nobody has said this, and my midwives never said that it was stalling me at all or stalling my progression. And I don't even like to use the term stalling in progression, but I just feel like I was definitely like not able to relax because it wasn't comfortable. Like authentically, it was what I envisioned. We all want a pretty water birth, but it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And at one point, my midwife was like, I think you should get out of there. I was like shaking and just wasn't really like progressing, honestly.
Yeah.
I was stuck for a second.
You weren't like you weren't in a flow in the water. It wasn't feeling good.
Yeah. So it was like I was still having these waves, but these contractions did not feel like they were like doing something for me. I more felt like I was just paused in the pool. So weird thing. I ended up getting out and moving to my bed, and literally right when I moved into my bed, I transitioned. There are photographs of me. I don't know if you've seen them in transition.
Seen some. I don't think I've seen the transition. You've sent me several of your photos, but I don't think those
There's
particular
photographs
ones.
of me in transition where I just look like I'm orgasming.
Did it feel like you were? Did it feel ecstatic in that way?
Yeah,
for you?
it felt like, honestly, it reminds me, and this might be too graphic or inappropriate.
Nope, not at all. Go.
But it reminds me of like a person, like how they portray on TV of like a heroin addict or something, like
the bliss.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like of like getting that in there, and then just like the knockout like head of like just being like, ooh, and like this is so great. That was my transition. It was intoxicating and
amazing,
potent, and
yeah.
It was like, yeah, even looking at the photos, you can see I'm like, and like gritting my teeth, but also like, oh, like it's a weird thing to look back on.
I just learned that one of my friends, Becky, who's actually coming over on Sunday, she had a spontaneous orgasm while birthing one of her children.
Oh my gosh, which is also a goal.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that was a thing, and so like with Charlotte's birth, I was like hoping that maybe that would happen. No, it didn't happen. It's not something you can like. I don't think it's something you can like
intentionally, like I don't think it has to be an intentional thing. I feel like putting the thought into it made it not happen. I was trying to use, I've heard of like clitoral stimulation and stuff for like relief. I didn't use any of that when I had breasts. It didn't even come to my head though.
Yes,
it wasn't something that I thought of in my moments.
Intuitively wanting to do it.
Exactly.
But you were feeling these good sensations.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, like I said, the whole labor was just really like being present in between. And like I was able to talk, like walk around and laugh with people. I was able to laugh when I couldn't remember loose lips. Like I'd get a tight jaw or something, and then it'd be like, oh gosh. And it was just, And I knew a lot of tricks, and because I am a birth worker, because I am around birth. And so knowing these tricks and applying them, and then just watching my midwives with confidence watch me use my tools was incredible. It was incredible. Like still I think about it, and like they didn't have, like I said, they didn't have to tell me a lot. They didn't have to touch me, like nothing, because I was pretty intuitively working through my birth. It's awesome to think about.
Yes.
So yeah, I got into my bed and I transitioned. I really want to show you the photographs, but
do you have them up on somewhere where I can link in the show notes? Okay, I'll definitely link that in the show notes.
Yeah, so get you back in comfortable position. Okay, so transition in bed. I had my mother-in-law fanning me because I was hot, but I was cold right after getting out.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law, which I'm so grateful for, put my husband's shirt on me. She's like, there's nothing better than your partner's t-shirt. I remember her saying this when I was in the thick of labor, and it was so true. You know, just being put in this big oversized long sleeve shirt of my husband's was like seriously
Oh,
so
good.
comforting. Granted, it was ripped off less than minutes later because I was too hot and nauseous. But yeah, it was on me for a second, and then I took the shirt off. My mother-in-law was using a twisted scarf as counter pressure for me to pull
Yes.
while she pulled and held.
Yes.
Advice from the midwife. Yes.
And were you on the bed at that
Yes,
point?
I was on the bed at this point.
On
and-
your back, on your
On my
knees,
back.
on your
I just like over and over again, I'm like, I birthed out of a hospital and still birthed on my back, but it was what felt right.
Me too. I mean, I birthed.
I know.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. It's so like well, I don't consider it. I feel like you weren't on your back. I feel like on your butt. You're
Yeah.
sitting up. Were you sitting up?
I guess I was leaning against Owen.
Yeah. But you
But I
were
was
like
sort of
elevated.
reclined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on my back. I gave birth
Yeah.
on my back.
Yeah, like fully laying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like kind of on the side with the leg up. Pretty much
Yes.
just like this. But like with
Yes.
my back fully reclined.
Yes.
Like I was like laying on my bed, and I had my mother-in-law doing the pressure, like the counter. So I had my mother-in-law pulling that as like counter, I don't know, tension. Is that what that is? Counter tension? It's pulling while I was pulling. I don't know. But that helped. And I instantly, like after transitioning, was like, I need to push. So
Yeah. So then you had that natural urge, not someone just telling you
no,
that.
I
Yeah.
literally, had that natural urge of like, I need to, it feels good to like, ugh.
And did you ever ask for like the cervical exam, or did you?
No, I did at one point, like was curious about if I was close. And I remember Kathy telling me I could check and to feel. And I felt a very like visual memory to me is when you were in labor with Charlo, you gave yourself a cervical check and you had just had your bloody show. It's on your fingers.
Yes, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
Owen was like, what?
Yeah, literally. I imagine that so vividly though. That was such like a, I don't know, like remembering you checking yourself like that and
Yes,
just
but
like
I don't think Kathy's that type of midwife where, you know, she's
She's-
encouraging
you
you to
to-
do it yourself.
exactly.
And feel.
Yeah, she's totally hands off, which I freaking love. But yeah, so I checked and I just remember like, I just feel like I couldn't feel anything. I'm like vagina, like, I don't know what, I can't feel. It's like if I touch my knee, I can also feel on my knee that I am being touched, right? So like I'm feeling for a bag of waters. I feel something, but like I don't feel something, if you know what I'm saying. Like I don't feel like something is being touched inside of me.
Right.
So I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, like I feel stuff. Like it was
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
I just really didn't know. Yeah, I was totally clueless, which his bulge of waters was there and you could feel it, but
Yeah, but you started pushing when you felt the urge to
Yes,
push, and it
exactly.
wasn't like controlled or anything
No.
like that.
it was very nice. It's like, I don't know. The way I compare that feeling, have you ever like pooped and it's really orgasmic when you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like that. Like just the feeling of like, oh, like just, yeah.
And you know, it like feels good kind of as it's
Exactly.
emerging
Every
and-
push that I had, it was just like, oh, I need to push. Like I could even talk while I was doing it because it was just like, oh my God, it's uncontrollable.
And it's like, yeah, you can't even stop the push.
No,
Yeah.
like my body was just, like so ready for the push. It was insane. So I was pushing while pulling on that piece of cloth that my mother-in-law had, and my husband was fanning me with like a wicker fan, and my midwife, after a while of pushing, it wasn't that long because my whole labor was only 6 hours.
Wowza. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the midwife, Kathy, was like, we could break your waters. And I was like, do it. And she literally just pinched with her finger and it exploded on my husband. Literally, like, ah, there's like a video of him being like, ah, and it's like all over his shirt and everything. And it's okay. My waters broke, and then literally his head started to emerge after that. I totally just started to crown, and I pushed and got his head out. And there's pictures of my mother-in-law just being like this with her eyes, and and it's so cool to look back, like I'm just being like, holy shit, you know. And my husband, he's got eyebrows like this while he's looking down in between my legs, and you can't see what's happening, but just everyone else's expression is like, it's getting real. Okay, so super freaking cool.
We're almost done, baby guys.
And I felt his head. I didn't do that with River. I wanted to feel this baby's head. I had the awareness to feel his head, the presence. I literally, it was just like everything. This birth was so empowering, you know, like
So bad.
It is a dream birth for me. I was incredibly empowered. I felt empowered by the people around me at the time too, though. They knew that I knew what I was doing.
They trusted you.
And like even my husband's grandmother, Grandma Joan, who I asked Grandma Joan about her own birth, and she said like her husband dropped her off and then like left and then like came back and got her when she was done. Very different, like so fucking different. It's insane. But she told me, like when we were talking about like what we were pursuing with the home birth, she was like, I don't know anything about what you're talking about, but I know that you know. I know that you know, you know? So like, she's like, regardless of me not knowing what the fuck you're even like, this is so otherworldly to me, but like, I know, and I'm confident that you know, and you're confident. So like, that was the kind of like support I received from them, which is super cool. The people around me may not have been like understanding of what exactly I was achieving, but they were supportive in the way that they could be, which is pretty cool. So I touched his head and when his whole body came out, he was out for a second, and then they put him on my chest, and I did not feel hot, and like I needed to get him off. And it was just a different.
I remember seeing like some of the photos, right? Like, and you're all like, ecstatic.
The only thing that like super sucked about any of it was that I didn't get to myself discover his gender. It was like shouted out by my in-laws that had seen the genitalia before I had gotten to, but I really wanted that photo of like picking him up and like discovering, you know? But literally, he came out and my mother-in-law was like, you got what you wanted, it's a boy. And we were so excited. Like I didn't think it was a boy because I was so sick, and because when I had River, I wasn't sick at all. I'm like, this has to be a girl because nothing feels the same as it did with my boy.
Right.
You know? Like, so when he came out a boy, I was fucking shocked. I literally was, and proud. I was like, I grew a Daley man. Like, just like, you know, especially coming from a family where they're so prideful of their men. I was just like, I birthed a boy. But it was, and my postpartum was like immediate postpartum. I didn't bleed. There's pictures of my birth, like on my bed. There's no blood surrounding me.
Amazing.
Weird.
And how was the placenta?
It came out.
Your placenta.
It came out without it birthed itself right after I birthed Russ. No tugging, no anything. Just literally my placenta was like, here I am. So weird. Again,
amazing,
easy. It just seemed like it was so effortless in that, like, I don't know. There is a photo of my placenta being born, and I did make a face. I'm like, now that I think about it, there was a face I made. But everything just happened very like clean and
Mhm.
fast. And
you didn't have the separation.
no,
like
I
you
got to be with
did.
my baby, but honestly, that caused me more anxiety because here I was, what I thought and what I felt, an
Mhm.
experienced mother,
Uh-huh.
but I had so much shit that was new. Like I had so much I didn't have my baby the first 12 days last time.
Right.
So I didn't have first latch. I didn't have breastfeeding after. I didn't have waiting for my milk to come in with a child.
Nursing and
Yeah, yeah, like none of this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It was honestly so different. And also like getting to know my baby when he's that small. And like, but I also had to remind myself that he was bigger than River already because he was born at 8 pounds at 43 weeks, whereas River was 6'13". And so I was like, he's so tiny, but he's also bigger. But like, it was just like,
Yes.
and navigating that was crazy. River was also, because he was in the NICU, was given a binky very soon. And so I like, did not use a binky with this baby because I thought that I was trying to not do that. And then I ended up using a binky with him, and he doesn't use the binky anymore now, but just also
Mhm.
navigating those first 12 days of like, binkies usually replace a cue of hunger
Mhm.
a lot of times.
Yeah.
So navigating that, and yeah, just postpartum was really different because I actually had my baby present with me nonstop. My placenta, I didn't even know what had happened to it. Literally 2 weeks postpartum, my midwife was visiting and I was like, what'd you do with that thing? And she's like, it's in your freezer. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I literally had no idea what had happened to it. So funny. My postpartum was also very fast-paced with people around me.
Mhm.
Our culture wants everyone to like, I don't know, I just feel like it's very normal for people to interrupt your space when you give birth, you know?
Yes.
And so like immediately after we had like visitors and we had people that came in from out of town
Unexpected. I
without
remember you
telling
telling me
us.
about that. That's horrible. Never do that to a mom.
Yeah.
Never.
I had like people show up from out of town on my doorstep, but like while I was like the minute that they showed up, I was literally on all fours in my tub with excruciatingly hot water with just the tips of my breasts in there, trying to like
Yeah.
melt them.
Mastitis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that I could try to get the clogs out. Like this is the second that these people knocked on my door. This is what I was doing. So it was so like, yeah. But it's very like encouraged to do that by people and to like, it's just impersonal. We have a very, yeah, I had lots of visitors. It was very fast paced. Also, like the people around me that were holding us are fast paced individuals who like were fast paced when they had babies years ago. So they like projected that for my own experience, which was rough.
I know. It's been interesting to like grow and learning more about like globally earth-based cultures like have rituals around postpartum
Yes.
and feeding the mom
Yes.
and keeping her warm, and even in some places where they stay indoors for 40 days.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
In Japan they actually like pay for someone to like for the mom and baby to be there and for people to feed her.
Yeah. I just saw a thing recently that was talking about like a postpartum. Teresa Palmer, actually, she's a celebrity. She's an actress, a filmmaker. She's a mother also, though. She just gave birth not that long ago, and she was gifted by somebody like a postpartum care retreat thing, though, where like it's like that. You're just like held by other people. You don't get up, like
you don't clean or do dishes.
You don't do anything. You have people bringing you food. You have people massaging you. You have people pouring baths for you and your baby. Like, just like, it's like a spa pampering, but it's after you had a baby. We do not do that. No. And there's so much pressure in our society. I feel like I don't want to say like too much of it on, like, I don't want to, this is a bold statement, but my separation and my divorce, truthfully, I feel has so much to do with the expectations that we have placed as a society on our growing families. Like, my husband was not held or supported to stay home with his wife. He was encouraged to go to work and detach and pursue that stuff, you know, like it's just like the whole system is not, the system is not here for our families.
No.
Oh my goodness. And I just feel like postpartum, that was like the most like troubling thing, is the war of like, we want to be present, we want to stay home, we want to pamper, we want to relax, but also we're told not to relax. I'm told not to pamper. We should not pamper. We should not relax. Like, it's just like
So backwards.
it's so backwards, and it causes conflict even between like partnerships and like families, you know, because we're trying to be supportive in all areas that we can, financially, emotionally, physically, however we may be. And it's a lot of stuff is not supposed to just be on us in our intimate circle. Like, we should have our community stepping in financially so that we can be emotionally present.
Yes.
Like, there's
Yeah, I mean, it's into this whole devaluing of mothering again. Like, we should be like in some areas, other parts of the world where you get your salary if you were at a job.
exactly, yeah. Well, there's also like other countries that like have 2 years, 1 year of postpartum paid leave, like
yes,
paternal
100%,
and maternal.
100% pay, not just like a fraction of what you were paid, 100%, because they value that mothering and bringing up this next generation each time that is happening all the time. This next generation is the most important work and should be valued.
It builds our community. Well, a lot of people don't realize also that the brain development of our babies between the ages of birth and 3 is 98% of their brain development. 98%. So anything that they're exposed to in those first 3 years is literally going to like govern so much of the rest of their life. We are literally shaped into who we are going to be almost within those first 5 years of our life. And those first 5 years, we're literally encouraging to like separate, you know, and like get back to work, daycare,
put
like
them in a crib.
Don't sleep with them, like cry it out methods, all these things. And then we wonder how we have all these people in society that are detached and they don't feel held, and people that struggle with communication or emotional presence. It literally does. It starts with birth. Yes. I genuinely feel like so much of like correcting like the generational trauma that has happened. It starts with birth.
Yes,
it does. Like how we're brought into this world, how we're cared for, like these how our parents are cared for.
Like, I've witnessed births where it's like those first moments of life, even babies are like, I consider it rape now when they're like shoving things down these babies' mouth that don't need things forcefully shoved down their throat. It's so sad.
All of it. Yeah. Circumcision, male circumcision. I'm like, there's so much. It's
interesting also, like the pain thing, the way they used to believe that babies didn't experience pain, and so we could just cut off their foreskin.
Well, we also thought that Black people didn't feel pain.
Yes,
you know, we are going to talk about this on another episode.
Yes, we need to wrap up today.
Yes,
but we will another day.
We'll talk about that another day.
Is there anything else you feel like you want to share to complete Russ's birth story?
I don't think so. He's just, I don't know. Yeah. I'm happy I got to share it. It's weird now because I'm coming from a place of being divorced. And separating from like the people I've just worked really hard to achieve all of this with. Yes. It's a very like weird place to be. And also to still honor it for all that it was and all of its glory, and not feel some kind of like sadness or I don't know, take away from it just because of what is happening now. So yeah, my birthless rest was literally a healing, perfect like dream for me. It was empowering. It allowed me to trust I'm like, it makes me emotional because I'm in the
Aw.
position now of like having to trust everything that's happening in life, you know?
Mhm.
I'm back in this position of having to have full trust again. But Russ and his pregnancy and his birth taught me to trust, not just like the universe or whatever bigger thing we believe in, but in myself entirely,
Mhm.
you know?
Yes. Yes.
Like trust me, trust my process.
I feel
trust
like
what
I've
I
seen
feel.
it in you in the way that you're like just embodying yourself in your life and
Yeah,
some of the words that you use.
it's
And
changed me.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, very profound. But I also have to say before we end the podcast that my birth with Russ was heavily influenced by your birth with Charlo. It totally was like being present for you, watching you and Owen navigate you with your mirror, you know, watching yourself open up, checking yourself, not having someone there, like, especially as a person who, as you said, was raised like reliant of the medical system. You chose that for yourself. You independently chose to not have a medical provider
Mhm.
there and present to assure you. You assured yourself.
Mhm.
And that's huge.
Mm.
Yeah. It totally
You
inspired me to
honor
do the
me.
same.
Oh.
So that was a huge thing. I had a mirror at my birth and I did the
Mhm.
things, and I had empowering photos and things placed around me. And I definitely feel like being here and present with you as you brought Charlo Earthside was a monumental moment and extremely inspirational to how I brought forth my own.
You're gonna make me cry. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's huge.
And
Yeah.
thank you for being vulnerable to share your story today, your
Yes, yeah.
stories, and even as
Totally.
things are unfolding in ways you didn't anticipate,
Yeah.
that you're still able to share this story. And I know that there's going to be women out there connecting with what you're sharing now.
Yes, true.
And it's just really important. And thank you.
Thank you.
And I love you.
I love you. Thank you for having me.
And will you share with listeners what your offerings are and where to find you? And I'll definitely include it in the show notes as
Oh my
well.
goodness. Well, my offerings are always, I feel like I'm like not in the moment of being established right now, but I'm slowly getting back into birth photography.
Yeah, but people could be listening to this like a couple years
Exactly,
from now,
true.
or like you
Okay.
might have more art that you've
That's
created that
true.
people could access. And, you know,
I'm honestly, yeah, okay. So I'm a birth photographer. I have an Instagram for that, which is Bear Wonders Imagery. I am pursuing painting. I kind of mentioned this to you. Is there time to
yes.
mention this?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
With my divorce, I'm trying to, well, for one, financially regain stability because I've been a stay-at-home mother since
Mhm.
giving birth. And
Mhm.
now that my partner is gone and they have taken that portion of our stability with them, I have to regain that for me and my little ones. And I paint, and it's not something that I have gotten to do a lot often, especially lately since becoming a mother
Mhm.
again, times
Mhm.
two.
Yes,
So,
do you
like,
find that you like have this inspiration to be creative, but then not
yes,
have the time
yes,
and the space to
yeah,
do it?
yeah,
Yeah.
with the birth of my son came a whole new birth of inspiration for me.
Mhm.
But yeah, finding the time is really hard. So I did just get studio space so that I may pursue a project. I'm going to start painting birth at a large scale. I really want to do it at a realistic scale. So like
Yes.
large canvases that like
Amazing.
pan walls, but it's like literally like real life size paintings of birth. I'm a realism painter. So yeah, I've just started this project and it's huge, and I'm hoping that I can show birth in a better light than it's
Yeah.
portrayed, honestly, because I feel like there's so much fear around birth.
Yes, there is. I mean,
Yeah.
and there should be some reverence because birth, I mean,
Yes,
at any
yeah.
point, we
Yeah.
could die at any point. And birth,
Exactly.
it's just more like potent at that time. The
Exactly.
like knowing that it's possible.
Yeah. I've never thought about that. We could literally die at any time, but for
Mhm.
some reason, yeah. and the
But
moments
there's
of
this like
birth.
hyper focus about it
Exactly.
in your birth.
Which is crazy because it's a moment of life.
Yes. Yes. And the first breath happens. Like,
Exactly.
it's so interesting.
Yeah, it's a really crazy thing. So yeah, I'm going to start painting large scale physiological human birth, which is super exciting.
Love it.
Yes. And I'm doing that though with like my clients, like with birth photography that I've taken, which is also
doing
super
baby.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is the coolest thing about it is I think like birth photography for me and like where I come from as a birth photographer myself is more of like the journalism side of it. It's like
Mhm.
documenting news
Yes.
as it's happening, you
Yes,
know, like I
yes.
don't see it like when people say photography, they think of like senior photos or maternity pictures
Uh-huh.
or newborn pictures or something
Yes.
like that. I like to document what the hell is going on in the
Yeah, it's
moment.
like capturing the raw, real
Yes,
experience that
yes,
happens.
yeah.
It is not. I love that you took like all these pictures of the placenta after Charlotte was born,
Yes,
and just
yeah.
like the
Photos of Owen bringing you medicine, your
and like
cramp
cleaning the blood
tincture,
off my
cleaning
feet.
off the blood off- Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
So I am very much so the kind of birth photographer that likes to just really photograph what is happening. Photographic journalism, if you will. I like to document the news of our growing community and our growing families.
Yes.
It's very important to me. I did, as we talked about earlier in the podcast, do it for donation
Mhm.
purposes. As I am like resurfacing and going back into all of this, I obviously, like I said, I've like come to a point of understanding I have a worth. Like, I
Yes, you
have
are
value.
valuable, and what you
Yes.
provide is valuable, and your
Yes.
time is valuable.
Yes.
And so, yes, you'll be
Navigating
creating
that.
and navigating that. And
Yes, I will be
Mhm.
navigating that soon. And then yeah, I just my doula, I'm also
a doula. Mhm.
yep. And I was a birth doula before, but pursuing postpartum doula care
Mhm.
extensively now. It's something that's super important to me. I'm also full circle. There's a woman that I met at Chino's Goddess Circle in 2014
Yes.
that is now a lactation counselor in
Yes,
Spokane.
yes.
And she's incredible. And she's also a part of our birth community. And that's the coolest thing. But putting my feelers out with other birth workers in our community also. We've
Mhm.
like, she has a lot of events that she's holding upcoming where there's like multiple birth workers and resources postpartum. And she
Mhm.
herself is actually like going from lactation counseling to postpartum doula care because she realized while she is a lactation counselor, which is postpartum,
Mhm.
she also wants to cook you food
Yeah.
and clean your house and like do all those lovely postpartum
Yes.
things that we need, you know?
Yes, those are my favorite things to do with women. Is,
Yes.
like you said,
Nourish
feed them,
and nurture
them,
Yeah,
sit with them.
exactly. Yeah. So that's also
Yeah.
something that I'm really putting my roots into is postpartum care.
Mhm.
But yeah,
And-
painting, birth
Yeah. And
photography.
you also have, I'm not on social media anymore, but I remember loving following your personal account.
Yes,
So
which
please
people
share
do.
that with
Oh,
people
yes.
because
Yeah.
it's so, you're so raw and vulnerable and beautiful there as well.
Thank you. Yes, I have an Instagram page called Canna Bear and Cub. It's Canna CANNA _ bear BEAR .N.cub CUB. So yeah, I share a lot of my journey on there. Unapologetically.
Yes, I love it.
It's honestly, I get a lot of backlash for it, especially from people in my personal life.
I feel like that's how you know that you're sharing some, like, there's some level of goodness with that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Not that there has to be backlash
But-
for something to be
Exactly.
important, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just, yeah, I feel like truth triggers
You're
some
pushing
people.
a boundary and an edge in a way
Yes.
that like people aren't used to or accustomed to, in ways that other people aren't comfortable sharing
Yeah,
themselves. And so
exactly.
sometimes I think people are triggered by that and are like angry that why can you be so open and share things? Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like you could too, but you're choosing not to.
Exactly.
You don't have to attack me
That's
for
a
it.
huge yes.
Just unfollow my account if you don't like
Boom.
it.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, I have a lot of vulnerable truths on my Instagram. I share a lot of birth photography. I share a lot of birth information, fellow educators. A lot of resources on there all the time, literally every day.
Yes.
That's my thing.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely follow me on there. I do not have a Facebook or anything like that, just the Instagram, but
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone.
Yeah,
thank you for
thanks
being
for
here.
having me.
To you, little man.
I'm so grateful.
Yes. All right. So long until next time.